Chapter 261. People also said that the boss's eyes kept wandering, a clear sign of his ill intentions. The boss told them that his vision was failing due to old age, which was why he looked around like that. But he was scolded again for making excuses, accused of looking without the courage to admit it. But the truth is, the pancake seller indeed had natural strabismus, and his vision got even worse with age. The storytelling gentleman narrated. "So harsh?" Someone exclaimed in surprise. "That's just one of the incidents." It said that when the passers-by on the road knew about their behavior, they deliberately turned their heads away, daring not to look at them. They were accused by them of sneaking around with dirty thoughts, questioning why else they wouldn't dare to meet their gaze. Through such a description, the audience understood that if this were true, it meant that the female swordsman of Chongling sect had completely changed. One should know that before, many peeped at Chongling sect, but such situations never occurred. Those who peered described that the female swordsmen of Chongling sect were becoming increasingly bewildered, exuding an air of enticing charm. They feared it would not be long before, one after another, they followed in the footsteps of those who left to entertain guests, descending into a life of debauchery. As a result, their anger was not only doused, but they even developed a chill called moroseness. "Is this the doing of old demon Duan?" someone asked. "Who else but him? If the demon can turn the jade girls into desire girls, naturally he can also make them from desire girls to the fallen ones." Furthermore, the female disciples of Chongling sect are going around expressing their gratitude, saying how thankful they are to old demon Duan for saving them from dire straits. Poor female swordsmen. We will never see their elegance in the martial world again. They have now become exclusive to old demon Duan. It's said that when the female swordsmen were implanted with the demon seed by old demon Duan, each and every one of them was clinging on to him, spraying water incessantly. The eldest sister of Chongling sect, Yu Xinjin herself said, "Old demon Duan even spanked her hard." Even though old demon Duan treated them so harshly, they still remain grateful to him, unable to let go, and deeply engraved in their hearts. If they are not exclusive to old demon Duan, then what are they? The storyteller spoke with deep emotion. "Doesn't the sect master Gushua care?" someone asked. "How coincidental it is that as soon as old demon Duan came to cure them, Gushua passed away," the storyteller said. Hearing this, the faces of many in the crowd turned pale. What a ruthless old demon Duan! To monopolize the female swordsmen of Chongling sect, even Gushua Senior could not escape from the clutches of the demon. If it is really so, now it wouldn't be wrong to say that Chongling sect bears the surname Duan. Damn it, all the female swordsmen have become his. Isn't that even more blissful than being the emperor? If the emperor heard about this, he'd probably be envious as hell. Damn it. Not even a drop of soup left for us. My silver saved for nothing. With Senior Gushua gone, hasn't Chongling sect lost its main pillar? So what, with the loss of the main pillar, dare you go provoke them? Is Gushua tougher? Or is old demon Duan tougher? At this point, everyone fell silent. Duan Yun had no words either. "Yu Xinjin, is this your idea of clearing things up for me?" Indeed, the clarification sounded true, even the detail about spanking. But why does the whole truth strung together feel so odd? Old demon Duan has basically taken over Chongling sect. What exactly does he want to do? Could he be aiming for the position of Martial Arts Alliance Hierarch? Martial Arts Alliance Hierarch. Once this idea was mentioned, many people gasped in shock. Old demon Duan now has the Jade Sword sect, which has been split into two branches. It's said that many men, unable to bear the burden, have become effeminate and joined them. The growth is explosive. Then he created another great hero sect, filled with lunatics vowing to kill all the cowardly men, wicked women and vile masters, an endless scourge. It said several cowards among experts have died miserably, and the ordinary cowards die en masse. Now that he has remolded the Chongling sect in his own image, one could say all three sects are under his power. If he comes up with something else, he might really set his sights on becoming the Martial Arts Alliance Hierarch. At this moment, the storyteller nodded and said, The previous martial arts alliance hierarch, Yu Bushan. Wasn't he the one who mastered a peerless sword technique and used the pretext of uniting the 5 major sword sects as kindred spirits? Afterward, he forcefully combined the 5 swords as his own and ascended to the position of the martial arts alliance hierarch. Yes, I remember now. Old Demon Duan slaughtered the White Sox sect in Yu State, leaving them with their clothes turned inside out. At the time, some even boasted about his chivalry and justice, but now it seems he was playing a long game. He was competing with the White Sox sect, aiming to build his reputation and power to become the alliance hierarch. The position of the martial arts alliance hierarch has been vacant for over 100 years. What makes Old Demon Duan think he can just take it? Now he says he wants to be the alliance hierarch with at least the support of the Chongling sect, the Jade Sword sect, and the Great Hero sect. Who would dare oppose him? Yes, who would oppose that? Old Demon Duan is very vindictive, and when the time comes, he'll kill anyone who opposes him. Look at the Huangshan Sword sect leader's daughter, who died peeing on her golden sword because of Old Demon Duan's doings. The Huangshan Sword sect didn't dare make a peep. Right, I heard Old Demon Duan even took in a disciple, the Green Blade Demon whose notoriety currently terrifies the martial world. What? The Green Blade Demon is Old Demon Duan's disciple. Suddenly, everyone became even more frightened. What should we do? We can't let this evil demon become the alliance hierarch. Can we? What evil demon? That's Duan Juxia. First of all, my Yellowstone sect acknowledges Duan Juxia. People soon realized that Old Demon Duan might still be in Laizhou. If Old Demon Duan heard their slander and really did become the martial arts alliance hierarch later, given his vindictive nature, it wouldn't just be them, even their sects could be implicated and purged. Yes, not to mention Old Demon Duan's vile practice of the fallen ways and Dao Heart Devil seeds, or his perverse cultivation techniques that drain people dry. Just having Green Saber Demon deliver one cut would be a fate worse than death. Exactly, a hero is not judged by his background. The position of the martial arts alliance hierarch naturally belongs to the capable. If Duan Juxia is the people's choice, that's only natural. For starters, my cold mountain leg has never spoken nonsense. Well said. In today's Jianghu, the only one who dares to call himself a hero and commands respect is probably only Duan Juxia. Someone said through gritted teeth. Indeed, such reluctant agreement accompanied by gritted teeth was not uncommon. Duan Yun sat there, somewhat bewildered. Martial Arts Alliance Hierarch? There used to be a Martial Arts Alliance Hierarch in the martial world. At this moment, the storyteller slapped the table with a gavel and said, "Ha ha ha! I can't believe you folks from Jianghu of Laizhou are actually afraid of an old demon from afar." "You're not scared," someone retorted. At that moment, the storyteller flicked his wrist, revealing a red silk cloth tied around his forehead, and loudly announced, "What should a mere storyteller like me fear? Even if the old demon turns me into a fallen one, drags me through disgrace, I will still speak. You all watch as the old demon takes the Chongling sect's sword fairy and gnash your teeth in rage, jumping up and down. But the moment you think about him possibly becoming the alliance hierarch, you're so worried he'll exact his petty revenge that you don't even dare speak the truth. Let me be the first to say, if Old Demon Duan wants to be the martial arts alliance hierarch, I oppose him. I oppose it too. If the Chongling sect's sword fairy is not returned to the martial world, Old Demon Duan and I shall be irreconcilable," declared someone saving up silver for years. "Do you remember? A year ago, Old Demon Duan senselessly killed many disciples of our Laizhou martial arts, the Thunder God and Mother sect. This is simply an act of defiance against our Laizhou martial world. The Thunder God and Mother sect has always been uninvolved in worldly affairs. Was it not for Thunder listening gaining sudden insight and accidentally killing a few civilians in Yun State? Because of that, he, a man from Yun State, killed so many of our brave men of the Thunder God and Mother sect, truly disrespecting our Laizhou martial world. Indeed, this is Laizhou's territory. If he dares remain in Laizhou, the Thunder God and Mother sect probably won't accept it. He might show off in Yoon's state using the advantage of time and location to kill an elder of the Thunder God and Mother sect. But here, he'll come to know the true power of the Thunder God and Mother sect. Upon mentioning regional pride and the martial arts of Lijo, many people suddenly puffed out their chests in pride. Duan Yoon even noticed that some of these people didn't know a lick of martial arts. So he silently made a decision. Since the martial world of Lijo held the local Thunder God and Mother sect in such high regard, he could only put in extra effort to ensure the sect's downfall. He wanted to show these ignorant folks what the distinctions between Lijo and Yoon state meant. Any ridiculous regionalism, as long as they were evil forces listed in his little notebook, he, the young hero, would pursue them to the ends of the earth to relish in their annihilation. Chapter 262. Extraordinary Wisdom in Action. Heavenly Thunder Body Tempering? Overcast skies cast a gloomy pall over a muddy street in Shanqing Town. Even the liveliest towns have their dark, decrepit sides, not to mention Shanqing Town, an obscure entity within Lijo. Decrepit houses, walls overrun with weeds sneaking through the cracks, and a few hefty geckos lounging about. All signs that this street had long been forgotten by the world. At this moment, a strange man clad in red, reeking of alcohol and with 2 metal iron flutes tucked into his hair, stumbled in. A young woman accompanied him. She wore simple cloth attire and had slightly dark skin. She looked to be a villager from nearby. Her eyes were glued to the stranger by her side, much like a lamb being led away by someone unfamiliar. Seeing that they were alone, the iron flute-bearing Thunder listener said, "This place will do. Strip." His voice was hoarse and strangely magnetic. The woman's eyes were vacant. Nodding, she began to unfasten her belt. Her expression held not a trace of shyness, as if she had no idea what taking off her clothes would entail. But then, footsteps suddenly sounded. "Hold on." The Thunder listener spoke up. This seldom visited street now saw another newcomer. He was clad in a gray robe, appearing young with earnest eyes, and was quite handsome. "At last, I've found one," Duan Yoon said. These past few days, he finally encountered a member of the Thunder God and Mother sect, a Thunder madman. Particularly at a moment when evil was about to befall an innocent girl, stirring within him a touch of emotion. He was as excited as a countryman meeting a fellow villager. After all, since the last battle at Graveyard, he hadn't come across such bullish creatures. It seemed as if he had slaughtered them all, making them scarcer than pandas. Fortunately, this was their homeland, and he truly missed the sensation of Thunder True Chi coursing through him. Thus, Duan Yoon looked at the Thunder madman with equal zeal, just as fervently as the madman eyed the woman. On seeing Duan Yoon, the Thunder madman's face twisted with displeasure. "What do you want?" "I need some true chi infused with lightning for my research, and you happen to have it," Duan Yoon replied earnestly. The Thunder madman looked at this young man as if he were insane. "Whose brat are you? So young and yet speaking like a demon? No matter whose kin you are, on this turf, everyone kneels. Taste the divine skill granted to me by the Thunder God and Mother." The Thunder madman, dipping his head, charged like a bull with horns aimed forward. The attack was swift, void of any earthly triviality. For a moment, he seemed to transform into a bona fide yak, the iron flutes his sharp horns. Then a thud was heard. His head had collided with Duan Yun's abdomen, yet there was no sound of the sharp yak horns piercing flesh. "Ah!" Only then did the Thunder madman let out a piercing scream. In that brief instant, his 2 iron flutes were ripped out by Duan Yoon and taken in hand, leaving only 2 bloody holes atop his head. The Thunder madman sobered up considerably from the shock and attempted to flee, only to discover, to his horror, that his head was trapped by an odd suction force against the abdomen of the handsome man, impossible to pry free. This was Beiming divine skill. Activate. In a swish, the Thunder madman floated upwards, sticking to Duan Yun's belly like a rod, his entire face a blur. The sensation of true chi with lightning entering his body was indeed refreshing, having been long missed. Yet moments later, his gaze turned stern. The purity of your chi is lacking. Why is your true chi so weak and common? Have you been cultivating properly over the years? Have you been listening to the thunder well? Disappointment washed over Duan Yun. For this hard-to-come-by thunder madman's cultivation was severely lacking. The true chi carried lightning, but it was slack and weak. As he continued to draw in the chi, he turned to the terrified young woman beside him and said softly, "Don't be afraid. I'm a young hero. I'll send you home shortly." With that, Duan Yun's beaming divine skill intensified. The few hairs on the thunder madman's head went wild. His skin rippled like waves, and his eyes rolled back. In his haste to send the girl home quickly, he had to exert more force. With a snap, as the thunder madman was completely drained and collapsed to the ground, Duan Yun turned back to the young woman only to find that she had fainted. Had she passed out from joy at being rescued, or was it from fear? Duan Yun couldn't tell. She had fainted too swiftly. But he was in a hurry, so he shot out finger strength, jolting the girl back to consciousness with a strong stimulus. "Where is your home, miss?" "Ah!" The girl opened her eyes, glanced at Duan Yun, then at the thunder madman lying on the ground, and fainted again. Damn, that was quick. Duan Yun turned to face the dim alley, knowing it would be troublesome to locate the girl's family using conventional methods. Fortunately, young hero Duan had no shortage of tricks up his sleeve. He placed his hand upon the girl's head and wisps of his chi began to seep into his palm. Compared to the frenzied absorption through his belly, Duan Yun was now drawing it in gently, even tenderer than when he had drawn from his sister. After all, it was clear the girl had no martial arts training. As his gentle, heroic spirit infused, his consciousness gradually connected with that of the girl. Duan Yun's brows tightened. In less than 15 minutes, he and the girl both shivered uncontrollably. The girl, previously unconscious, quivered awake, and as their eyes met, Duan Yun couldn't help but say, "I'm truly sorry for unintentionally killing your husband." Chapter 263. Yes, in the instant when their minds were connected, he also saw a fragment of the woman's memory. It was the image of this thunder madman taking her in marriage in a proper wedding, with the two of them lovingly practicing thunder listening together. It turns out this girl was also a thunder madwoman, but since there were only 2 iron flutes, they could only share them, with each spouse taking turns listening for a day, overjoyed to see each other making progress. Duan Yun sighed and said, "It's about time. I should be on my way." At this moment, the young girl who seemed weak as a reed suddenly shot up, her hands flying towards Duan Yun like scissors. "Attack!" Duan Yun delivered a flying kick, hitting the girl in the abdomen and sending a jade sword finger strike right after. With a thud, the young girl's body smashed through the crumbling wall and got embedded in it. Her hair scattered, revealing 2 pitch-black holes on the top of her head and another bloody hole right between her eyebrows. She was beyond saving. With her dying breath, she stared at the blood-stained iron flute in Duan Yun's hand and her dead husband's body, and suddenly cried out, "I want to be a hero." With that, she died. Her eyes were filled with terror at death. Perhaps even she herself was shocked at why she'd utter such words on her deathbed. Duan Yun looked at the 2 corpses and could not help but mock. Just focus on thunder listening. Why bother with love and sweetness? Making me feel like a villain. Imagine a loving couple with the same hobby, sharing an item between them for an activity, rejoicing with each other's progress. Always in love, one day they sought some romantic thrill in a deserted alley, only for someone to suddenly burst in, take the item that symbolized their love, kill the man first, then the woman. How could you not call that person a villain? However, on the other hand, the memory of these 2 thunder madmen running amok in a thunderstorm, the man using the iron flute as if it were cattle horns, and the woman using her scissor hands to murder a blacksmith's entire family, also flooded into Duan Yun's mind. The reason was that the blacksmith, due to poor skill, couldn't repair a dent on the iron flute and dared not take their work. This segment of memory also solidified Duan Yun's resolve to eradicate all thunder madmen. Any thunder-listening lunatic, no matter how beautiful and loving their romance is, does not deserve to live, for from the moment they engage in thunder listening, They are destined to go insane and kill indiscriminately. They do not regard others as human beings, and for young hero Duan, who acts for heaven, to treat them as humans would be too merciful. Kill. Kill them all. The grown-ups first. Duan Yun cleaned up the bodies, adhering to the principle of not contaminating the environment, even gave these two notably evil dogs a cremation, and then left. By this time, though Lizhou was not covered in ice and snow, it had already become very cold. The weather was gloomy. The cold wind howled, as Duan Yun rode his horse on the road. He was in a hurry to go to Thunder Mother Mountain to kill. Compared to Yun State and Yu State, the terrain of Lizhou was evidently more open. Grasslands stretched to the distance, followed by a vast forest, and beyond the forest stood a majestic snow-capped mountain. In the blooming springtime, this place must be beautiful, like a painting. But in this season what laid before him was desolation, cold silence. Duan Yun traveled alone, not a soul in sight, not even an animal to be seen. He couldn't help but feel as insignificant as a grain of sand in the vastness of the world. If he weren't in possession of a divine skill, barely considered a minor expert, he might even panic at the thought of his corpse lying exposed in the wilderness. What came with that was an overwhelming sense of loneliness. The land here was so vast, yet people were so few. Before nightfall, he finally found the place he was looking for. Chenshue Town. He had actually seen this town from afar. But there is a saying, distant mountains fool horses. And even though the precious horse gifted by Yu Zhenjin was fast, as Duan Yun rode on its back, it felt as if the cold wind might just shear off his nose. Even so, it took him an hour to reach this small town nestled at the foot of the snow mountain. Leimu Snow Mountain is Leimu Mountain, high above which lies the Little Lei City, erected in honor of the Thunder God and Mother. Little Lei City, nestled within the lofty Leimu Snow Mountain, was once known as the highest city among men. There was a time when Little Lei City bustled with life. In ancient days, the Thunder God and Mother sect would throw open their gates, and for a variety of miraculous reasons, throngs of civilians would pilgrimage there to worship the Thunder God and Mother. They'd even frequently witness snow leopards from within the mountains blessing the Thunder God and Mother in what was hailed as the highest city among men. But of course, these are all tales of yore. No longer does anyone dare to visit Little Lei City, let alone the town of Chenshue at the base of the snow mountain, which too has been abandoned. Drifting in the sky were pieces of paper. Only when Duan Yun stood in the town, tugging on those copper wire strands, did he realize that floating in the air were not pieces of paper, but human skins. Upon his arrival in Lizhou, Duan Yun heard rumors about how the current sect leader of Thunder God and Mother sect flayed the women of a town and hung their skins in the air to attract lightning. Now it seemed those women's skins were right here. Each attached to a delicate copper wire, they floated in the air like humanoid kites. The wind here was strong, howling like the wailing of ghosts. It seemed as if they would never fall, thus forever crying in the heavens. After making such a connection, Duan Yun couldn't help but break out in goosebumps. At this moment, his usually docile horse let out a restless neigh and backed away. A piece of human skin had somehow fallen and was caught on a tree in the town, spinning in the wind as if a woman was shadowing deeply, creating a particularly chilling sight. No wonder no one was willing to guide him here, even when he offered silver. This town, where numerous skin kites were suspended, was undoubtedly terrifying as a nightmarish apparition. Even young hero Duan, with his boundless heroic spirit, felt a sense of terror in the gloomy dusk. He wouldn't make it into the snow mountain tonight and would have to stay here for the evening. As Duan Yun led his horse down the street, he had the eerie feeling of being watched by countless human skins. The town looked to have been abandoned. The sign of a former tavern had fallen to the ground, revealing only the words rice wine. Outside a dilapidated house, only a tattered wine banner hung, fluttering in the wind. In any town, if all the women were skinned overnight, turned into kites, and strung up to attract lightning, it's no wonder the town would be deserted. It just goes to show when such a vile lunatic goes mad, an entire town can become uninhabited. Having arrived here, Duan Yun's expression had turned grave. He had just circled the town on horseback and found no signs of life, as if even madmen like the Thunder sect were fearful of this deserted town filled with human skins. Perhaps, as those unwilling local guides had said, too many had died here. It was prone to haunting. The Thunder sect's madmen might fear ghosts, but young hero Duan did not believe in such things. At this moment, Duan Yun had cut down the human skin hanging from the tree and laid it on the ground inside the tavern to examine it. Though the woman's skin was damaged in several places, it was apparent it was entirely intact when skinned. It is by no means easy to flay such a perfect piece of skin off a living person, and the fact that the sect leader of Thunder God and Mother sect could skin all the town's women in one night speaks to his terrifyingly precise skinning skills. A skill so chilling it makes one's hair stand on end. While Duan Yun had heard these rumors before and didn't think much of them, now, witnessing a town's worth of skins floating in the air, he understood the true horror of such a capability. The sect leader of Thunder God and Mother sect possessed immeasurable strength, certainly not one to be compared with any elder or the like. For a moment, Duan Yun felt a flicker of uncertainty. Young hero Duan is always confident, but his confidence is not blind. It's born from extraordinary wisdom. Suddenly, rolls of thunder sounded in the sky. Lai Zhou's winter thunder was looming once again. Duan Yun gazed at the human skins floating in the air, tethered by thin copper lines, his mind aglow with extraordinary wisdom. If the enemy's strength was formidable, it was time for him to continue developing his own cultivation techniques to enhance his power. As to what this new cultivation technique should be, he still had no idea. Listening to the thunder, Duan Yun looked up at the sky and grabbed one of the copper wires connected to a skin kite. How about heavenly thunder body tempering? Chapter 264. Rotate. 1 million electromagnetic sword fields rotate. The thunder rumbled through the sky, and as night fell, fierce winds howled, spinning the skin kite in the air as if it were flying to devour people. In this dilapidated, gloomy town, Duan Yun's eyes sparkled with a different kind of brilliance. He held the copper wire of the skin kite, ready to draw the lightning into his body. The sect leader of Thunder God and Mother sect had made so many skin kites to attract lightning. They must have also done similar acts of bathing in lightning, and so he could do it too. Not just could, but with his extraordinary wisdom and unparalleled cultivation talent, he was bound to far surpass. Yes, it's time, Duan Yun said excitedly. Having mastered fingertip thunder and with sword power swirling in his body, he could even generate demon electricity. His body was very close with electricity. One could say everything was ready, only the lightning strike was needed. Along with the right conditions to attract lightning, if not now, then when? With this thought, Duan Yun gripped the copper wire even tighter, excitement growing. The horse, seeing him like this, had long been scared and hid to one side, not daring to approach. Boom, boom, boom. A flash of lightning struck down, illuminating his face brightly. However, the lightning struck nearby, not where he was. Truth be told, Duan Yun was still a bit nervous. After all, it was his first time waiting to be bombarded by lightning. Tap, tap, tap. At this moment, it started raining, making the surroundings even more desolate. The rain felt very cold. Duan Yun even thought he saw sporadic snowflakes dancing in the air. This combination of thunder, rain, and snow was truly a strange weather event. Boom! A nearby skin kite was struck and ignited instantly, tumbling down like a shattered butterfly. The power of heavenly thunder was indeed terrifying. And he, Mr. Duan, young hero Duan, intended to conquer such formidable entity. Suddenly, the surroundings lit up brightly. The skin kite, held by Duan Yun, ignited in an instant above the copper wire. Then, terrifying thunder traveled down the copper wire. Duan Yun only felt a mountainous torrent of electricity surge into his body. This was entirely different from the usual absorption of thunder true chi and the generated demon electricity. Too coarse, too fierce, too strong. Thud! Duan Yun was already kneeling on the ground, his body surging with electricity, clothes shattered, and even his underwear exploded in an instant. At this moment, sword power in his body whirled instinctively, generating demon electricity, and all the true chi absorbed also gushed out, resisting against the heavenly thunder. However, facing this terrifying heavenly thunder, the lightning within his body was completely inadequate, unable to resist at all. Although the heavenly thunder lasted just a moment, Duan Yun felt it was longer than days and nights. Every pore in his body opened up, with electricity drilling through them, and even his body hair ignited. Breaking body sword energy whirled out, forming sword mist, trying to defend, but it was instantly dissipated by the lightning. At this moment, Duan Yun felt he couldn't hold on anymore. Under this terrifying lightning strike, his body agonizingly struggled to cope, unable to bear it. Extraordinary wisdom turning sharply. Yet, it was this pain that suddenly made Duan Yun's extraordinary wisdom shine. Once deeply submerged, how exactly could one avoid such terrifying heavenly thunder? Faraday cage. The knowledge from Duan Yun's past life suddenly surfaced in his mind. Xiao Yu, come out. Heart to heart, like butterflies fluttering together, black death energy scattered outwards, and the jade immortal sword Dharma image loomed. In an instant, Xiao Yu wrapped Duan Yun, and then the terrifying heavenly thunder cascaded over Dharma image Xiao Yu. Black death energy and the lightning glittered against each other, with more emotions appearing in Xiao Yu's pupils, making the whole Dharma image more lifelike. Xiao Yu, like a Faraday cage, took on most of the heavenly thunder, allowing Duan Yun to instantly escape from the suffocating condition. His heart pounding like a drumming, an instinctive reaction from his body fighting against the heavenly thunder. Watching the intertwining of death energy and heavenly thunder above his head, Duan Yun's extraordinary wisdom kept spinning. Xiao Yu, unify! Suddenly Duan Yun thought of something, shouting aloud. Dharma image Xiao Yu sank down, embracing him in her arms. From here, it looked as if Duan Yun's head rested on her body. In that moment, Duan Yun even felt an enchanting softness, the softness of Wenro. The next moment, his body suddenly tensed, as more of the lightning that danced around Xiao Yu entered his body due to their deepening unification. This lightning mixed with death energy seemed like sentient threads, or some kind of mystical nerve, connecting Duan Yun with Dharma image Xiao Yu. In that instant, Duan Yun and Xiao Yu simultaneously shivered, their mind and spirit becoming one, entering a mysteriously profound realm. Amazing! Duan Yun opened his eyes, with fine splinters of lightning shooting out. Just as his extraordinary wisdom had predicted, the power of thunder and lightning transmitted through Xiao Yu underwent a transformation. The combination of heavenly thunder and death energy became more suited to his constitution. Crucially, during the thunder permeating his body, as he and Xiao Yu trembled together, they reached a wondrous realm. The initially chaotic currents, led by death energy, began to revolve around Duan Yun's body, creating a magnetic field. With Duan Yun at the center, the dust around him lifted off the ground, along with some small stones. Duan Yun raised his hand. The horse neighed, and as its hair stood on end, the cloud mountain surrounding sword skills, tucked away sped towards him, flipping pages in midair. As his extraordinary wisdom contracted, this one-in-a-million cultivation genius grasped the mysteries of the sword field. Sword field combined with a magnetic field, was there any potential? Only trying it would tell. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. At this moment, that bout of heavenly thunder had passed. Chapter 265. Yet the power of heavenly thunder flowed between Lai Zhou and Little Yu, causing the surrounding rubble to float around them as they tried to leave. Lai Zhou lifted his hand, and 3 copper wires were already grasped in it. He was about to intensify his efforts. Afterward, more copper wires were held in Lai Zhou's hands. From afar, he looked like someone flying more than a dozen skin kites. Boom! It was uncertain whether the skin kites indeed attracted the lightning, or there was another reason, but thunderbolts kept striking down on the town, making it look like a scene of transcending tribulations. In the next instant, Little Yu's robes fluttered, and sparks of electricity danced. In this moment, let alone little Yu herself. Even her robes and black silk seemed like they would transform into something tangible. Due to two bolts of lightning striking two skin kites, twin heavenly thunders followed the lines down, charging towards Lai Zhou and little Yu. The familiar exquisite sensation once again bloomed between Lai Zhou and little Yu, even more intense and swift than before. Rotate. Magnetic field. Rotate. Lai Zhou suddenly roared towards the heavens. Death energy and terrifying electric currents began to spin together, while the surrounding magnetic field started to change and invert. Zzzzzt. The dreadful sound of electricity echoed across the town, and horses with bristling hair, watching Lai Zhou bathed in lightning, were so frightened that they wet themselves and dared not move. Rotating with the electric current was also the black breaking body sword energy. Yes, he added breaking body sword energy. So in this instant, many currents turned a menacing black, mingling with the blue electricity. Electromagnetic sword field. Activate. With a loud roar from Lai Zhou, the black and blue lightning spread like a torrential downpour, filling the nearby space, as if even the rain and snow in the sky feared its presence, scattering and flying away. Lai Zhou had formed the sword field he desired. Unfortunately, it still wasn't enough. It wasn't enough. As the heavenly thunder continued to follow the copper wires down, Lai Zhou raised his hand, and the gold sword was unsheathed, floating in front of him. Rotate. Electromagnetic sword field. I command you to rotate. Lai Zhou's eyes emitted black lightning as he held the gold sword high. At that moment, the swirling sword field of black and blue lightning twisted about, like a flood dragon flipping in the air. One could see the black and blue lightning in the sword field converging and gradually taking on the shape of a sword. This is my sword field. Lai Zhou grew more excited, gripping even more copper wires, and leapt up. Rotate. 100,000, no, 1,000,000 electromagnetic sword threads. Rotate. Within the town, one could see Lai Zhou, his body barely clad, revealing his firm muscles, with black silk little Yu appearing like a demon or god behind him, surrounded by the frenzied, spinning electromagnetic sword field. Boom! For a moment, the sound of thunder reverberated from the ground, as if the thunder was generated from underneath. It was the sound of Lai Zhou's electromagnetic sword field spinning. The surrounding houses were already shredded by the sword field, and at this moment Lai Zhou, at the center of the electromagnetic sword field, appeared almost to float in midair. He estimated that the spinning reached about tens of thousands, but even if it hadn't hit the mark now, proclaiming 1,000,000 was exhilarating anyway. Besides, with his extraordinary wisdom and supreme talent, reaching 1,000,000 was just a matter of time. Young hero Duan was just that promising. At this point, 3 thunder listeners from the Thunder God and Mother sect, following the thunder, arrived at the scene, and upon witnessing this sight, all fell to their knees with thuds, as though they had seen a deity. Thunder God and Mother's sect. Sect daughter? Lei Zhenzi. One of the thunder absorption madmen trembled and spoke. Kiko, why is it a man? Another thunder absorption madman spoke with a face full of panic. Now, even Duan Yun's underwear had been blasted away, making his distinctive features obvious, even amidst the furious electromagnetic sword field. Inside the Thunder God and Mother sect, there had always been a saying that on Earth, there are the goddaughters of the Thunder God and Mother. These goddaughters, without exception, were all women, extremely rare in number, with perhaps only one appearing every couple of 100 years. Within the Thunder God and Mother sect, they were also known as Lei Zhenzi, and each time they awoke, they would deliver prophecies from the Thunder God and Mother. Before awakening, these goddaughters were generally unremarkable, but once awakened by the sound of thunder, they gained the divine skills to control heavenly thunder and seemed to become entirely different people, bestowing the prophecies of the Thunder God and Mother. However, after these goddaughters obtained these divine skills, their lifespans would become extremely short, usually dying within a year. The elders of the Thunder God and Mother sect believed that it was because these goddaughters, after awakening, missed the Thunder God and Mother so much that they were eager to return to the thunder clouds. The Leizhenzi were considered to be the messengers of the Thunder God and Mother, possessing an extremely revered status within the sect, and because they would pass away soon, they were not deeply involved in the affairs of the Thunder God and Mother sect. But the individual before them, Duan Yun, was clearly a man. Could it be that the Mother also has godsons? Duan Yun, floating in the air, noticed these thunder absorption madmen, and so he drifted towards them, naked. What goddaughters, Leizhenzi? Have you wronged some family's innocent girl? Duan Yun floated in the air with the bearing of a deity. No. The night before last, we were thunder listening, and received guidance from the Thunder God and Mother, hurriedly preparing some items, never expecting to meet your excellency so soon. It seems the Mother purposefully guided this, wanting us specifically to offer these to Elder Leizhenzi. Saying this, 3 thunder listeners opened the long packages they carried on their bodies, revealing human heads inside. The heads included both elderly and children, all without exception hollowed out, making them look like a row of bowls from this angle. Veins bulged on Duan Yun's forehead. Suddenly, the electromagnetic sword field around roared into action, and with the flow of the thunder sword, the 3 thunder absorption madmen were suspended in the air, immobilized. You bastard! D. A golden sword fell from Duan Yun's hand, and through the compressing force of the electromagnetic sword field's thunder sword, the 3 thunder absorption madmen burst open on the spot, scattering into pieces. In their wildest dreams, they did not expect that this goddaughter of the Thunder God and Mother, no, perhaps the godson, would so swiftly take their lives. Why? Ah! At this moment, the sound of thunder had diminished, and the winter thunder in Liuzhou, just like that of the summer season, came quickly and left just as swiftly. Duan Yun stood there, bare-skinned. He and little Yu were still wrapped in thunder and lightning, black and blue intertwining. They were absorbing this heavenly thunder. With half an hour of arduous effort, Duan Yun managed to grasp the skill electromagnetic sword field, making a further breakthrough, and somewhat corresponded to his 1 in 10,000 cultivation genius status. Afterward, as long as it was a thunderstorm, he would have the opportunity to charge up, using fast charging no longer limited to absorbing the true chi of thunder absorption madmen. From his performance just now, the electromagnetic sword field was powerful, and its future promising. It could be said to be another powerful trump card following Love Unlimited. As the current gradually merged with him and little Yu, they had completely absorbed the heavenly thunder. This absorbed heavenly thunder power was sufficient for him to activate the electromagnetic sword field 3 times. To activate it again, he would need to find an opportunity to charge. After all, he and little Yu, even if they were 2 batteries, their capacity couldn't be infinite. Otherwise, he would have become a perpetual motion machine long ago. Duan Yun was very satisfied with tonight's accomplishments. Now, he could be considered as someone with 2 major moves. Looking at the hollowed-out heads on the ground, some of which belonged to young children of but a few years of age, Duan Yun felt a fire burning in his heart. The sky still drifted with cold rain and fine snow, yet he, unclothed, felt no chill. The wind of the broken town continued to howl. As Duan Yun walked through it, he felt as if spirits in the wind were calling his name. He listened carefully and heard them saying, "Young hero Duan, kill, 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 kill." Yes, only killing. Only by slaughtering all the evil demons in this absurd and dark world can there be clarity, and can these many wronged souls be at peace. On the edge of the village, on a pine tree, a man with a red scarf wrapped around his head gritted his teeth as he wrote, "The old demon enters the town. Even heaven sensed its evil, intending to strike it dead with heavenly thunder." Who could have expected? Although the way was high, the demon was higher still. The heavenly thunder could not defeat it. Instead, it was used by the demon to murder 3 innocent thunder listeners. As he wrote this, the man's eyes reddened, nearly falling to tears, while his trousers were damp, urine trickling down his leg, a moment's warmth turning immediately to cold. Even the bloodthirsty storyteller was shocked and frightened by the might of the old demon. Chapter 266. The mantis stalks the cicada, Xian Di behind. After that terrifying thunderstorm had disappeared for a full half hour, the bloodthirsty storyteller finally dared to slowly climb down from the tree. During this process, he was extremely cautious, fearing that with a turn of his head, the handsome old demon Duan would be standing behind him, smiling at him. Just the thought of that scene was terrifying, wasn't it? He couldn't help but his hair stand on end. After all, old demon Duan's deathly smile had appeared in quite a few cases. Only when he descended the tree did the silence around him remain, with only the sound of the wind blowing through the trees. At this time, Shui finally dared to take a deep breath. The weather was cold, and his soaked crotch was about to freeze. Shui had been a storyteller for 2.5 years and was a newly minted bloodthirsty storyteller. He always had a strong sense of mission about storytelling. In the words of the older generation, he was born for this job. In his words, bloodthirsty storytelling was his life. Even if it cost him his life, he could not stop storytelling. He hadn't been in the bloodthirsty storytelling business for long before he became fascinated with the stories of the newcomer demon, old demon Duan, and at the same time, he knew of a senior old Gua, who had a good reputation in the industry for telling stories about old demon Duan. This kind of senior old Gua was simply guiding his storytelling career. Especially recently, he heard that senior old Gua, in pursuit of old demon Duan's footsteps, was caught by the White Sox sect on the road from Yun State to Laizhou. Inside the White Sox sect, there are many villains who fancy men, and it's unknown how much torture senior old Gua might endure inside. He might even be tortured to death. For the sake of storytelling, senior old Gua is truly a role model for our generation. Not only did senior old Gua's experiences not scare him, they taught him what courage is. He must be as fearless as senior old Gua, trying his best to understand the truth and tell the story of old demon Duan with his own understanding. Previously in Lin Shuang City, when he heard this young man ask for directions to Little Lei City, he suspected the other party was old demon Duan. So young and handsome, and daring to go alone to the forbidden area of martial world like Little Lei City, could only be the bravely audacious and utterly evil old demon Duan. And tonight, when he stood in the tree watching that thunderstorm, seeing old demon Duan's perfect body naked within the lightning, he deeply realized the terror of old demon Duan. It was terribly scary. He wet his pants entirely out of instinct. When the lightning turned into swords, the heavens and earth were changing colors. At that moment, old demon Duan seemed no longer a part of the human species, but a true demon, naturally capable of invoking immense fear. And him should he follow? Not to mention whether old demon Duan would discover him, it would be very difficult for him to continue down the road. Little Lei City is a forbidden area in martial world. Thunder Mother Mountain is also forbidden for someone like him. It's not false rumors that there are ghosts and spirits in the mountains. The growth of human-shaped snow ginseng on Thunder Mother Mountain has long been no secret. Previously, it attracted many martial world people to search for it. After all, the human-shaped snow ginseng is quite valuable, but then not much activity followed, largely because although snow ginseng were not taken out much, many people died. The few survivors who remained were either crippled or insane, leaving behind rumors of man-eating monsters. This divine mountain, it seems only Thunder listeners can traverse. Now old demon Duan wants to delve deep into Divine Mountain, to pick a fight on the territory of the Thunder God and Mother sect. It's truly audacious. The peers outside talked about old demon Duan harming Laizhou martial world people with clenched teeth. Many even mobilized the Thunder God and Mother sect to suppress old demon Duan, saying that in Laizhou, even a strong dragon cannot suppress the local snake. But old demon Duan clearly cannot be deduced by common sense. Others think he wouldn't dare to provoke Thunder listeners here, but he insists on venturing deep into the belly of the Thunder God and Mother sect. What extent will old demon Duan reach afterward? Shui looked at the night sky of this terrifying small town, thinking of that terrifying figure, and shivered from fear. But at the same time, a strange sense of excitement was also brewing within him, stimulating him. No, even if it means death, he had to follow. Shui wrapped himself tightly in his sheepskin coat, his eyes determined. Even though this is the outskirts of the small town, quite a distance away from old demon Duan, Shui dared not get any closer. He simply wrapped himself in his sheepskin coat, his entire body resting against the tree, blending in with the surroundings. And not long after, Shui suddenly heard a sound like a large bird flapping its wings. Instinctively, he dared not breathe. Perch, this area was always rife with rumors of monsters that eat people. In the next instant, Shui didn't see the monster, but he was even more afraid. Floating in the air was a woman in red. This woman, clearly very voluptuous, was able to float constantly in the air, as if she could sleep in the wind. In this town full of skin kites, could she be the life-claiming red-clothed fierce ghost? Shui dared not look any further, only burying his head, pretending he saw nothing. This town was first the scene of a demon instantly killing 3 Thunder listeners. Now there is a red-clothed fierce ghost floating in the wind. Could he witness a scene of the demon battling the fierce ghost? The thought of this topic made Shui's mind turn rapidly, bringing up numerous sensual scenes. He was certain, old demon Duan battles red-clothed fierce ghost, this story being made up, plus some added sensual scenes such as flying mounts, would definitely be extremely popular. Just not sure if this female ghost would really fight old demon Duan. If it really happens, then even if it means death, it would be worth it. At this moment, Shui was even more afraid, and even more terrified. Yu Shuang's figure floated in the air, her nose twitching slightly. Chapter 267. After so long, she finally found the trail of old demon Duan. She had already gone to Yun's state, but on the way, she heard a storyteller say that old demon Duan was causing trouble in Laizhou, and that's why she hurried back. Unexpectedly, after going round and round, she really found the trace of old demon Duan. The Xian between Yu Shuang's eyebrows trembled slightly, and her entire face showed an expression of frenzied excitement. Connive! She was finally going to connive against Duan Yun. However, Yu Shuang, despite her intense craving for Duan Yun, was not a person overclouded by lust. She understood Duan Yun's methods and knew that now was not the time. Duan Yun came here obviously targeting the people of the Thunder God and Mother sect. She just needed to wait patiently a bit longer, wait for Duan Yun and the Thunder God and Mother sect to exhaust themselves in their fight, and then he would be hers to trample under her feet. So Yu Shuang floated up, landing on a skin kite. She also tied herself to a copper coin and floated in the air like this. Her cultivation had greatly improved by now, and she could even sleep in the wind. At this moment, a fire was lit in a house within the city. From the air, Yu Shuang could vaguely make out the figures by the fire. At this sight, her eyes went wide. Right beside the fire, one could see a figure. Though it wasn't clear, Yu Shuang knew at a glance that it was Duan Yun. Key point is, Duan Yun was actually not wearing any clothes at this moment. A burning sensation scorched her heart, and Yu Shuang could only close her eyes, breathing in and out in the cold wind. She was afraid she couldn't hold back. Outside the house, the cold wind howled. Duan Yun returned to the tattered tavern naked, feeling no cold at all. Not just because his body was filled with electricity, but also because his blood was hot. The blood of a young hero is naturally hot. If not for the difficulty of finding the path at night with the risk of falling off the cliffs, he might have gone into the mountains right away. Seeing his horse shivering from the cold, Duan Yun shaved some discarded stools and lit a fire. The red jujube-colored horse, watching him stand there naked, occasionally silent, occasionally showing a haunting smile, still shivered. It was then that Duan Yun realized he wasn't wearing any clothes. So he went to the horse, took out a set of replacement clothes from his bundle, and put them on. After that, he began to cook. People always have to eat. Before leaving Lin Shuang City, he found that the lamb legs there were good, and with the weather being cold, suitable for carrying, so he bought one. Tonight, he was going to have roasted lamb leg. A whole smoked lamb leg, not particularly large but substantial in hand. Duan Yun was about to cut the lamb leg with his golden sword, but recalling the image of Huangshan heroine urinating on the golden sword, he held back. He had washed this sword countless times, and it had just been baptized by lightning, but because of that image, it always seemed not so clean. So he took out one row. The delicate blade glided through the lamb leg, creating even cuts. Unintentionally, He found that he had carved the character for justice on the lamb leg. Sigh, it had become a habit from writing it too much. To make the flavor penetrate better, Duan Yun even used his true chi to create a rotating sword power, reaching deep into the lamb meat. Only then did he place the lamb leg over the fire. Duan Yun first brushed a layer of oil on the lamb leg. It must be said, to enjoy this lamb leg, he didn't just buy the leg itself but also a whole set of condiments. As the flames rose, the fat from the lamb leg soon appeared, and Duan Yun rotated it, sprinkling cumin and Sichuan pepper as seasoning. Before long, the air was filled with the rich aroma of the food. Outside the house was a dreadful small town, long abandoned and hung with many skin kites, but inside, by the campfire, was a cozy scene. In such a haunted place, only tasty food could comfort the heart. When the lamb leg was roasted, Duan Yun began to feast, even taking out the flatbread he had bought earlier, mixing it with the lamb meat to eat. It had to be said, a bite of lamb, a bite of flatbread, occasionally complemented with a sip of wine, the feeling was truly wonderful. Duan Yun enjoyed his meal to the fullest. He was an action hero who never hesitated to right wrongs, fearless of hardships. But when it was time to indulge, he truly indulged. Food is the most comforting. After all, only after a full meal can one kill properly. Yu Shuang, floating in the air, smelled the scent of the roasted lamb in the wind, taking a deep breath. It was the flavor that Duan Yun had tasted, maybe even carrying the taste of his lips. For a moment, fiery passion blazed in her eyes. If Duan Yun could have scorched with his glare, his clothes would probably be burned again. Having finished the lamb leg, Duan Yun sat quietly by the window, drinking. The tavern had been abandoned for many years, covered in cobwebs, with only this barely intact chair and table remaining. Sitting here, Duan Yun could even imagine countless people drinking here, experiencing the joys and sorrows of life. Regrettably, those times are gone. Perhaps the women who once drank here are now nothing but a piece of skin floating in the sky. This world is still too filthy. If he doesn't completely eradicate Lei Dianzi from these mountains this time, he wouldn't qualify as a young hero. Outside, the cold wind howls, and from here, human skin can still be seen drifting in the air. Such scenes in his past life could only be found in horror movies. Or rather, these horrifying scenes were something he would hesitate to watch alone in the dead of night. But now, he is in such a world, an existence akin to a horror movie. Whilst he is dissatisfied with this world, there is also an undercurrent of excitement. Because he knows sooner or later this world will change because of him. He is quite pleased with what he is doing at the moment, because he knows that even when he is old and can no longer wield a sword, recalling these events will still fill him with pride. Afterward, Duan Yun took out that little notebook, carefully looking at the page about the Thunder God and Mother sect for a long time. The sky was just beginning to lighten when Duan Yun set off. He couldn't wait any longer. At this moment, the world was still dim, yet the mountain of snow was white. Duan Yun rode his horse towards the snow-capped mountain, and Yu Shuang in the wind also opened her eyes. She didn't rush after him, for she knew that to avoid being discovered by old demon Duan, she had to be clever, to bewitch her prey. For this man who had once made her lose blood and tumble down a cliff, she would do anything. The Xian Di between her brows seemed to sense her mood, warming slightly and quivering like flower petals. Shui, half paralyzed, still dared not move. Before him were demons and fierce ghosts, and as a storyteller stepping deep into this, it was difficult. He would need greater patience and bravery to witness those dreamlike scenarios, the stories that would be worth dying for. He wished to emulate Old Gua, to become famous throughout the industry. The bloodthirsty storyteller, never admitting defeat. The legacy that Old Gua couldn't complete, let him be the one to finish it. Almost at the same time, Old Gua was bound in midair by 4 white socks, his eyes hollow, and the Zhang character on his leg multiplied indefinitely. Then he shook his head, gradually regaining some clarity. Whimpering, he must escape. The white socks were too cruel. There are no trails in this world initially, but as more walk through it, a path gradually forms. This is a classic saying, but not quite applicable to the present scene. When first leaving the town, Duan Yun could still faintly trace the remnants of the old road. But as the altitude rose, these fragmented shadows disappeared. No matter how many people walked that road in the past, it's all gone. Here, trees and the ground were covered with a layer of snow, leaving no sign of any path. This snow mountain was much bigger than Duan Yun had anticipated, and the terrain was even more complex. At this point, even the spirited horse showed signs of strain. The scenery of the snow mountain was beautiful. A gust of wind stirred, lifting a veil of thin snow, creating a misty wonderland. Yet, beneath this beautiful scene lurked grave dangers. Suddenly, a horse's neigh broke the silence as its front hoof plunged into snow, and together with Duan Yun, they began to fall. Duan Yun's finger jabbed, piercing the wall with a snap and clinging onto it. In the next moment, he scooped up the horse from the well, holding it in his hand. It was a crevasse hidden beneath the snow, bottomless at a glance. With a toss of his hand, the horse nimbly landed back on solid ground. Duan Yun realized that the road ahead was probably only meant for him. He climbed up, grabbed his belongings from the horse, patted its rump and said, "Go wait for me in town, or if not, head back to Chongling sect." The horse seemed to understand his words and seemed to sense the great dangers in the mountain. Not dawdling at all, galloping down the mountain instantly. Duan Yun looked at the vast expanse of the snow mountain and couldn't help but sigh, saying, "If I don't beat you all down, teeth shattered on the ground, I would have come all these miles in vain." At this moment, Duan Yun once again longed for the high-speed trains and subways of his previous life. If he could travel to these places by train or subway while listening to music, or at the very least, catch a bus, and then hurry back for a barbecue after killing his enemies, it would be beyond perfect. Chapter 268. Hee, I want to be a hero. Inside Old Mother Mountain, the snow was blindingly white. Because he truly couldn't find the path, Duan Yun could only wander around the mountain. He hoped to find one or two of those madmen from Thunder City to infuse him with genuine heroic spirit and help guide the way. Alas, there were none. Not a single one. No one suddenly realized that having the enemy of a hero guide the way was quite a challenge for young hero Duan. It must be said, inconvenient transportation really makes killing a physically demanding task. He began to understand why so many sects preferred to build their bases on high mountains. To start with, enemies seeking revenge had to climb mountains and cross ditches, exhausting themselves while they could rest at ease. This was also one of the reasons why the 6 major sects could besiege Bright Peak. As the sky gradually darkened, the snowy mountains still reflected light. The smooth areas looked like a deep blue mirror, mysterious and beautiful. But within this mysterious beauty, there was also an indescribable sense of solitude. Duan Yun, having been a person for 2 lifetimes, was also venturing deep into the snowy mountains for the first time. The heavens and earth were very quiet, a vast expanse of whiteness, occasionally broken by the sound of a large bird flapping its wings. At this moment, Duan Yun suddenly saw a wooden house that had collapsed on one side. This was the only building he had seen after circling around here, and he couldn't help but feel a bit of joy. This proved that he had found the right place. Where there were man-made structures, there would be cities of man. Perhaps Little Lei City was nearby. Duan Yun leapt up, nimbly climbing to the top of a snowy cedar. As the sky turned darker and the snow shone with a white light, looking out from here, the world was still a vast expanse of white, no further discoveries. At this point, Duan Yun also wanted to rest. So he walked towards the broken wooden house, and to his surprise, discovered a person. It was indeed not easy to meet someone in this icy and snowy land, but unfortunately, it was a corpse. The person must have been dead for some years. In this cold boundary, the body had greatly decomposed, leaving behind half of a green-black face. This dressed-up appearance must be a madman from Thunder City, unknown as to why he died here. Such a person could in no way be a hero, and so Duan Yun kicked, ushering him out of the house to enjoy the solitude by himself. After all, the wooden house was just so small. The corpse flew out, hitting a protruding rock outside, and instantly broke into several large pieces. Duan Yun leaned against the wall of the wooden house, took a drink of alcohol, and closed his eyes to rest. He decided not to grope around in the dark any longer. Finally, having found this clue, he didn't want to wander off again. With nothing else to do, Duan Yun took out the heart-to-heart spell that Zhenjin had given him. Zhenjin had mastered this extraordinary skill, able to capture and toss back the sword qi of Guxue, and according to the description in the secret book, once practiced to the latter stages, one could clamp down on all things in the world. However, this secret book was not too easy to understand. Not knowing from which place the founder of Chongling sect was, there were words he recognized, and others he completely did not recognize, feeling like seeing Chinese characters suddenly followed by a row of Arabic script. These twisted characters, like they were scratched out by chicken claws. Even when Duan Yun was most harshly criticized by his teacher, he never wrote his characters so abstractly. Perhaps this was the reason why everyone in Chongling sect, especially Zhenjin, had mastered it. Understanding abstraction was indeed not an easy task. Perhaps even his 1-in-a-million cultivation talent would take about 10 days and a half-month to master. Duan Yun looked at these characters, becoming sleepy. He had only been walking in the snowy mountains for 6 hours, but he felt somewhat tired. This fatigue was not physical but mental. The snowy mountains were beautiful, even breathtaking when he first entered. But watching for too long, the endless expanse of white repetition inevitably brought about a sense of weariness. At this time, fine snow began to fall from the sky. Duan Yun closed his eyes, beginning to sleep. A person can go without food for several days but cannot forego sleep. Falling asleep, Duan Yun suddenly opened his eyes, because he heard the sound of children speaking. The night had deepened, and the broken pieces of the corpse still lay outside. Honestly speaking, hearing the voices of children in this deep mountain-broken house suddenly evoked a sense of terror. But the sound continued, sounding like a little boy and a little girl talking about something. Could it really be a ghost? Duan Yun stood up, rubbed some snow with his hands to wash his face. Be it human or ghost, young hero Duan was going to find out what was happening. Duan Yun left the dilapidated wooden house. The night sky was densely covered with clouds, yet not very dark due to the reflective snow layer. The voices of the children were coming from up the hillside. Duan Yun treaded through the snow, leaving only a shallow trail of footprints that made no sound. The hillside was covered in a dense pine forest. The pine forest was dense, its interior deep and mysterious, and the voices of the children were coming from inside. Could it be that Little Lei City was in this pine forest? Having killed those 2 madmen from Thunder City before, he knew that even the madmen would marry and even have field battles. So it was perfectly reasonable that the children from Thunder City were nearby in Little Lei City. After wandering the snowy mountains for 1 day without finding Little Lei City, Duan Yun was in a bad mood, even eating half a pound less of lamb at noon. Without any hesitation, his body flickered, gliding into the pine forest like a nimble large bird. "Brother, this way. Hurry up." In the forest came the voice of children from inside, yet no human figures could be seen. In the dark pine forest, an eerie ghostly air. The first time Duan Yun camped in the wilderness, he thought he had encountered a ghost, a woman in red. But later he found out that it was the mad woman from the red house. Later, he encountered Huang Shikorpser in the night, and even later still, he personally witnessed a creature like a dragon, refreshing his worldview once again. Chapter 269. Upon careful thought, he hadn't actually encountered a real ghost. The dark forest, with the occasional sound of children, yet no shadows to be seen. Such a scene was indubitably like something from a ghost film. Young hero Duan, filled with heroic spirit throughout his life, did not hesitate much and again employed his movement technique to follow. Even though there was quite a bit of snow on the ground, since it was shaded by trees, it remained quite dark here. Just as Duan Yun was pondering whether to take out his fire stick, he suddenly stopped in his tracks, because he discovered that he had stepped on something hard. Duan Yun looked down and saw broken tiles scattered everywhere. There were a few bricks by the side as well. He walked a bit further and found that this place also had a lot of abandoned dwellings, only more thoroughly deserted. If Little Lay City could be called a city, then these abandoned structures in front of his eyes were more like the suburbs of Little Lay City. Of course, this was just Duan Yun's guess. It was so dark here that he couldn't see much farther. At this moment, his gaze suddenly sharpened. A faint, very faint sound arose ahead, sounding like footsteps. The footsteps lasted only an instant, but Duan Yun still heard them. His figure floated and drifted towards the direction from which the sound came. But just as he was halfway there, his body suddenly sank, and he fell to the ground. Because he had seen a big fellow. Within the dim pine forest, the outline of a four-legged animal took shape. The first reaction in Duan Yun's mind was a snow leopard. After all, there were rumors in Little Lay City about snow leopards gathering in front of the Thunder God and Mother statue. But the next moment, Duan Yun was certain that this was not a snow leopard. Snow leopards did not have such a large body, nor such big eyes. In the dimness, what Duan Yun saw first were a pair of brown eyes, like bell clappers. He saw that the creature's face was covered in patterns, with hair standing on end, patterns like the cloud motifs carved in temples. A lion? This is what surfaced in Duan Yun's mind. But this wasn't the kind of lion he had seen in zoos in his previous life. It was the kind of lion seen during dragon and lion dances during New Year celebrations. Although the dance lion is naturally a human disguise, the thing before his eyes was not. Folk customs must ultimately have a prototype. Duan Yun thought when he saw the lion dance in his previous life. Could it be that such lions truly existed a long time ago? People saw it and believed it was an auspicious symbol, but then that kind of lion disappeared, leaving only the lion dance figure. The matters of his previous life were no longer something Duan Yun could delve into, but one thing he could be sure of was that this world still had this particular type of lion. Something that looked extremely like the dance lion. The dance lion has always been considered an auspicious beast, appearing festive and lively, but when such a real lion stood before Duan Yun, it couldn't help but give off a sense of horror. Indeed, its eyes were very big, its gaze as if tangible, making one's heartbeat quicken. The patterns on its face, full of deep wrinkles and ravines, seemed filled with a decaying scent. The next moment, Duan Yun's scalp tingled, because at that moment, the voices of the little boys and girls drifted over. Precisely from the mouth of this lion. Could this lion mimic human speech? If it could speak, then wasn't it a monster? Hee hee. No laughing. The little boy and girl's voices were innocent and cute, but at this time, they sounded extremely eerie. The moment the little girl's voice rang out, the lion of the snowy mountain leaped forward with a pounce. Its leaping speed initially seemed very ordinary. Duan Yun's sword already drawn from its sheath, and just as he was about to disembowel it, the next instant, Duan Yun's expression shifted, breaking body sword energy surged forth, turning into a mass of black sword mist, wrapping around himself. With a swish, like a dazzling flash of lightning, the tail of this dancing lion, unexpectedly, swept over, swift and fierce with great momentum. With a snap, like spring thunder touching down, Duan Yun, enveloped in sword mist, was struck flying, thudding as he crashed and broke a cedar tree, protected by the death energy breaking body sword energy. And with his agile movement technique, even though he was sent flying and crashed into a large tree, Duan Yun was still unharmed. After landing, he initially wanted to catch his breath, but his body suddenly swayed to the side, leaving a residual image. With a snap, a clear ravine appeared at the spot where he had just been standing. Mud and snow mixed together were blasted into shreds. That meaty tail smacked onto the ground, sending out clear snap sounds, as if it really contained the power of thunder and lightning. The next instant, the dance lion roared fiercely, its entire tail planted on the ground, such that its body stood up like a person. From this angle, one could clearly see many wounds under the lion's belly. Those wounds wriggled, momentarily like split open mouths, suddenly making a tearing sound through the air. Duan Yun swept his sword, the sword chi like a barrier, standing in front of him. because from those mouths suddenly spurted out a lot of saliva. The saliva was like arrows, carrying a tearing sound, appearing both poisonous and powerful. Damn it, spitting everywhere. Young hero Duan couldn't stand these things, so the blade of his sword dipped swiftly, unleashing a shaving strike. Fourfold spring rain. The rotating sword chi kicked up snowflakes, colliding with that saliva. Bang, bang, bang. The collision sounded like muffled thunder. Yet young hero Duan's sword chi ultimately proved the superior. Smack in the center of the lion's belly. This huge creature, even taller than a person when standing, suddenly flew out, crashing down to the ground with a thud, dragging a trail behind it. Still, the lion was tough-skinned and hard-fleshed, glaring with its bell-clapper-like eyes, about to get up. At that moment, a Dharma image nearly as tall as itself suddenly appeared behind the young man. Chapter 270. That was a girl with twin ponytails, wearing a blue and white porcelain pattern cheongsam, violently throwing a punch. Following her punch, Duan Yun's fist also struck out. Strange boxing burst forth. The Dharma image and Duan Yun's fists connected into one, like a fierce storm. Bang, bang, bang. The continuous sounds of fist power striking instantly swelled the lion's massive head, bruising and swelling its face, the flesh undulating non-stop. Merge. 16 Road Chi. Extreme hatred. Duan Yun's hair surged wildly, along with the Dharma image's twin ponytails. His true chi roiled within him, 15 Road Chi fist and his heroic spirit linked into one, ultimately transforming into the extreme hatred fist force beyond the 15th level. Bang! The lion's massive nostrils were smashed in, forming a cavity, blood and water flew, and its large copper bell-like eyes were also smashed into darkness. It fell backwards onto the ground, just like how Master Bao Guo was knocked down by a heavy punch. This lion, a massive creature, while seriously injured, was not yet fatally wounded. However, after this punch, it whimpered, its face showing a deeply sorrowful and soul-stirring expression, as if it were a wronged little lady. Hee-hee. Chirp, chirp. Yes, even the sounds of a little boy and girl from its mouth appeared deeply sorrowful, lonely to death. All of a sudden, the lion spoke again. I want to be a hero. Almost at the same time, a frenzied expression of wanting to be a hero appeared on its face. Young hero Duan could make the dead say, I want to be a hero. But this was the first time for an animal. After these words were spoken, the lion instantly became agitated, desperately charging at Duan Yun. Seeing this, Duan Yun sighed and said, You still haven't grasped the true essence of being a hero. I'll teach you. He suddenly plunged one row into the ground, standing on the blade as if on stilts. With a hum, the blade bent into an arc, and Duan Yun's body launched like an arrow. Lu Mountain ascending dragon dominance. The dragon-like fist power hit the lion's jaw squarely, bringing a sound of flesh and bone shattering. The lion's mouth sprayed blood like an arrow, and its body flew up, while more intense sounds of fist power erupted. I punch and punch and punch. While it was airborne, Duan Yun launched over 100 punches in one breath. The lion's heavy body couldn't fall down for a moment, and though the lion's hide was thick, it couldn't withstand such onslaught from old demon Duan. While it was getting pounded to the point it wouldn't recognize its own mother, it still occasionally managed to say, I want to be a hero. I told you. You don't understand a hero. Lu Mountain Meat Grinder. In the air, Duan Yun suddenly clutched the lion's jaw with both hands, gathered all his strength, muscles tensed, and with a heave upwards, smashed down. From afar, he looked like he was throwing down a stick with all his might. With a thud, the snow exploded, debris scattering around, shattering even more completely. The lion lay in the pit, its body flattened, no longer in the shape of a lion. In the past, Wusong fought the tiger. Today, Duan Yun has also smashed a lion. After the strike, the lion's huge eyeballs almost popped out of its sockets. It glared at Duan Yun, speaking the words, I want to be, before taking its last breath. Duan Yun gasped for air. Tonight's boxing was truly enjoyable. Looking at the fallen lion, Duan Yun's blood boiled. He couldn't help but inwardly exclaim, "Men indeed have the genes of a hunter." This feeling is extremely satisfying. Yes, this ferocious beast wanted to eat people, and beating it into deep sorrow, until it no longer resembled a beast, was truly satisfying. Even in death, the lion's eyes, glaring at Duan Yun, still had a sinister feel. Hee hee. Suddenly, a child's voice popped out again, startling Duan Yun. What the hell? Even though the lion could talk, it surely had stopped breathing, and he didn't stimulate it with heroic spirit, so why was there still sound? Duan Yun was extremely scared. He lifted Wenro and directly sliced the lion open. Next moment, a horrifying scene emerged. Inside the lion's huge stomach, there were piles of human bones. Some of these bones still had bits of tattered silver decorations. Others were accompanied by small pieces of ripped cloth, and on top, there were the skeletons of 2 children. Below these 2 children's skeletons, there was an adult skeleton with hands raised, as if supporting them. Duan Yun could even imagine, perhaps these were the parents of the children, who, when swallowed by the lion, did not die instantly. The parent, holding up their hands, tried to support them to survive, to wait for a miracle, but alas, the miracle did not happen. They still died inside this lion's stomach. Duan Yun looked at the 2 children's skeletons and exclaimed in surprise, "Was it you who made those sounds?" No answer, no more sounds of children. But whether by coincidence or not, just then, there was a click sound, the hand bones below moved, and the 2 children's skeletons trembled slightly. He circulated his true qi, extracting the skeletons from inside the lion's belly. Afterward, he separated these bodies, dug a large pit, and arranged these bones inside, burying them. Duan Yun looked at these bones, especially the 2 children's skeletons, and while burying, he lamented, "Whether it was you or not, this evil lion has been killed by me, you can rest now." Saying this, Duan Yun covered the pit with soil. And just then, he noticed that both children's right-hand bones were pointing in the same direction. Duan Yun finished burying the soil, hastily carved a wooden marker, and set it up. Afterward, he headed in the direction indicated by the children's skeletons. This pine forest was deep, he walked for an hour, and by the time it was almost dawn, he finally emerged. At this time, dawn broke over the horizon. This place was on a hillside. From here, Duan Yun could already see the outline of a city in the distance. Little Lei City was there. The path indicated by the 2 children was actually accurate. This place was not easy to find. If he were to look for it, he probably couldn't locate it without a few days' search. Do ghosts really exist in this world? Duan Yun pondered this question, striding towards Little Lei City. Chapter 271. It's about time. Young hero comes to destroy the clan. Snowy mountain peaks. Under the morning light, the serene blue peaks appeared as though they were a freshly cleaned mirror, beautiful and dreamlike. Little Lei City was nestled in the snowy woods below the peaks. Due to the towering trees, it was difficult to notice from lower ground. Duan Yun made his way there. After slaying a peculiar lion overnight, instead of feeling any tiredness, he was brimming with vigor. What is meant by thriving in battle through battle? In the early morning, this city under the snow peak began to show tendrils of cooking smoke. Even thunder listening, that madcap had to eat. This city was neither large nor small, with walls constructed of mud bricks, and farmland outside the city walls. Deep into these snowy mountains, it unexpectedly snowed less, and the snow was relatively shallow. With a flick of his movement technique, Duan Yun soared up onto the city wall. There were no guards on the wall. From there, one could see the houses with black-tiled roofs. Numerous rooftops featured large elephant stone sculptures. The buildings in the city varied in height. Duan Yun's gaze quickly locked onto a 2-storied attic, because that was where the closest smoke, which hinted at cooking, emerged. Thinking about the looming fierce battle with the Thunder God and Mother Sect, he decided to grab some breakfast. Thus, Duan Yun utilized his movement technique, descending into the city like a large bird. Afterwards, he began walking around the city. At this moment, dawn had just broken, the air was cold, and the streets of Little Lay City were nearly deserted. Or rather, in this remote city deep in the snowy mountains, the gloomy streets revealed many ramshackle houses. Some broken signs were even strewn on the ground. In less than 15 minutes, Duan-Yun had reached the two-storied attic. The attic had a small yard with the gate wide open. Duan-Yun walked in, his brows already slightly furrowed. Only then did he smell that what wafted through the air was not the aroma of food, but a faint medicinal scent. In the room, there was a black medicine pot on top of a stove. A woman was decocting medicine. It turned out the woman wasn't preparing breakfast, but making medicine. Noticing that she didn't have the iron flute, he thought about changing places. But just then, a voice rang out. "If you want to come, hurry up. I have to take my medicine soon." Duan-Yun couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. Unexpectedly, he'd been discovered. The next moment, an even more surprising scene appeared before his eyes. The woman with her back to him let her clothes slip off, showing her bare back to him. The woman wore nothing under her gown. What was more shocking was that her originally snow-white delicate skin was covered with large and small scars. From this angle, it seemed like a piece of jade had been shattered, leaving behind scars. At this time, the woman had only a pair of embroidered flower shoes left on her. "You're still waiting? I told you I still have to take my medicine." It was only then that the woman turned around. The next moment, she too froze in place. Duan-Yun and this woman both stood there dumbfounded. Clearly, she had thought him to be someone else up until now. It must be said, the woman had a great figure, but it was a pity that it was covered in scars, making it all the more jarring to the eyes. At this point, the woman's face flushed. She quickly picked up her clothes and exclaimed, "I've never seen you before." Duan-Yun nodded. "I'm from outside." The woman hesitated. "Are you here to seek apprenticeship with Thunder Listening?" Duan-Yun shook his head. "No. Then you are." "I am a young hero, here to perform righteous deeds." Duan-Yun stated straightforwardly. He wanted to know more information, and she could be a good source. Panic appeared in the woman's eyes. After a moment of consideration, she clenched her teeth, came outside, glanced around, and nervously closed the courtyard door. Then, she said, "You better leave quickly. Sneak away. Don't let Thunder Listening find out." Duan-Yun puzzledly asked, "Why? Don't you know how terrifying Thunder Listening is?" The woman said in a pained expression. Noticing that they were still standing in the courtyard, the woman's complexion grew uneasy and said, "What exactly are you here for? Come inside first." The woman returned to the room, and Duan-Yun followed. By this time, she had already extinguished the fire under the medicine stove. She quickly glanced at Duan-Yun and said, "I know you people have some capabilities, but you're so young. Don't throw away your life." Duan-Yun remained silent, just quietly observing her. The woman bit her lip and said, 2 years ago, 3 people from Bodhi Temple came here, speaking some nonsense about saving others, but by that night, they all died. Their bodies were hung in front of the city gates. You don't know how terrifying Thunder Listening is. They're simply not human." As she reached this point in her remembrance, her whole body couldn't help but shiver. Duan-Yun looked at her and asked, "Your injuries? I don't need someone like you to save me. You should leave quickly. I know you all are good people, but this place is more dangerous than you imagine," the woman said painfully. Seeing Duan-Yun still unresponsive, she hurriedly continued, "With your looks, it would be even worse if you were caught." "Why?" Duan-Yun asked. "Don't you know, in this city, being good-looking is a crime. People like me are the lowest existence in the city, just because ugly people can freely beat and humiliate me." At that moment, tears appeared in the woman's eyes. "So you should leave quickly. You are so handsome and an outsider. Those ugly nobles will use countless means to torture you." The woman earnestly implored with emotion and reason. Although Duan-Yun didn't fully understand her meaning, he could see she was a kind person. At that moment, a loud bang was heard as the courtyard door was pushed open. Chapter 272. The woman's face suddenly turned deathly pale, and she was already trembling all over. She wanted Duan Yun to hide, but at this time he had already hidden behind the curtain in the room. The sound of footsteps began, and two people walked in. Through the curtain, Duan Yun saw two women enter. Two fat women with yellowed teeth and squinty eyes. Seeing these two women, the woman from before trembled even more violently. One of the squinty-eyed fat women, holding a whip, said, "Seeing us coming, you still dare to wear clothes." The trembling woman said, "I didn't know you were coming so early. I still need to take my medicine." "Medicine? You such a thing also deserve to take medicine. Take it off. If there weren't rules, I would have already cut off your sinful bitch flesh to avoid making me angry. It's because of foxes like you that we can't get true love." At this point, the whips in the hands of the two squinty-eyed fat women swung, looking like they couldn't wait any longer. Duan Yun now roughly understood how the woman's scars came about, and also knew that these two were probably the ugly nobles the woman mentioned. Seeing this, the woman could only hold back tears, and just as she was about to undress and suffer humiliation, Duan Yun suddenly threw open the curtain and stood behind her. She was so frightened that her face turned white. The two squinty-eyed women were stunned when they saw Duan Yun. Then, their expressions also turned ferocious. "The stinking woman still secretly has affairs with men. It's because of sluts like you that we don't get to sneak around." At this time, one of the squinty-eyed fat women, looking at Duan Yun's handsome face, suddenly exclaimed, "You're not from the city. Who are you?" Duan Yun said, "I already told this lady. I am a young hero, a hero who upholds justice. You're looking for—" Before the word "die" could escape the left-side fat woman's mouth, Duan Yun's fingers shot out like lightning, thrusting in. Bang bang, two sounds almost occurred at the same time. The woman's eyeballs had been pierced. The other woman, seeing this, turned to run. But at this moment, the whip from the eyeball-exploded fat woman had already reached his hand. With a swoosh, the squinty-eyed fat woman's neck was wrapped by the whip. Duan Yun gave a yank, and her corpulent body crashed to the ground like a lump of meat. She opened her mouth full of fresh blood, about to speak, but a whip struck right across her face. Her mouth, thus opened, directly burst open, along with her ugly face. The two ugly women struggled, trying to escape, but once the whip was drawn, there was no stopping. Each lash was forceful and heavy, each akin to thunder, almost embedding into the flesh and bones of the two fat women. After 10 lashes, the women died amidst severe pain. They were beaten to death alive. Duan Yun had no prejudice against ugly people, but he had considerable disdain for evil-doing ugly women. The scars covered beautiful woman. Seeing this scene was utterly stunned. The next moment, true chi surged through Duan Yun's body, sticking the two bodies to him, while a sweep of his blade drew all the surrounding blood onto the blade, and the house was clean again. While wiping the blood with the bodies, he said, "I will resolve your troubles within a day, if you are willing to believe me. Next, things in the city will be chaotic. Take good care of yourself." Saying this, Duan Yun left, carrying the two bodies with him. The woman looked blankly at his departing figure, her hands tightly clenched, her nails digging into her flesh. Tears fell drop by drop. She originally should not have any hope. Could a person like her have hope? She hesitated for a moment, finally gritting her teeth, picked up a pair of scissors from under the grass mat on the bed, and followed him out of the room. Duan Yun left the house, walked a distance, and directly threw the two corpulent bodies onto a nearby haystack. At this time, Little Lei City's streets were getting busier. On the street ahead, many people were eating breakfast. Duan Yun walked up to a noodle shop, sat down and said, "Boss, a big bowl of noodles, double the topping." "All right." The boss, a man with a pockmarked face, was happily boiling the noodles, but after seeing Duan Yun's face, his expression gradually became guarded. Perhaps he recognized that Duan Yun was not from the city, Or perhaps he simply had a bias against Duan-yun's clean and fair face. But he still dared not act rashly, as usual. He dutifully cooked the noodles, even tremblingly adding an extra scoop of meat topping. Because the noodle shop owner knew, anyone coming to Little Lei City from outside usually has some skills. This person would probably die soon, so he'd better not provoke trouble. Duan-yun ate the noodles seriously. He needed to eat his fill to be ready for work. At this time, several eyes in the city had taken notice of him. In this secluded small city, a new face was easily noticeable. But he didn't care. Just as he was about to finish his noodles, Duan-yun saw two familiar figures, donned in red robes and with iron flutes stuck on their heads, looking highly respected and greeted wherever they went. The most striking feature was each of them was leading a person. Two people were tied up, crawling on the ground like dogs. They were also a man and a woman, seemingly a couple and struggling hard, yet their faces were washed clean. Visibly, this couple was also good-looking, at least in the category of having delicate features. They crawled like dogs, and the others watched them like dogs. Chapter 273. While eating noodles just now, Duan-yun had already observed, just as he had speculated, this secluded Little Lei City displayed a distorted ecology. That is to say, the ugly ones held high status, while the good-looking ones were treated worse than dogs. Just as the woman covered in whip marks said, in this city, being ugly naturally made one right, while being good-looking naturally made one guilty, often subject to the humiliation of the ugly ones. He knew the time was about right. At this moment, two crazy followers of Thunder were still dozens of steps away from him. He had already thrown a piece of silver on the table and proactively approached them. The noodle shop owner watched this scene, his eyes bulging. He had been hoping that the two Mr. Lei would come over and find this heretic to eradicate this scourge. But he didn't expect that the heretic would take the initiative to approach them. Did he dare to provoke Mr. Lei like this? At a distance of 10 steps, the two Thunder Crazies leading the dog had already seen Duan-yun. Especially the woman, her eyes even flashed with lascivious lust. Which fellow bought this little dog outside? The next moment, she only felt her pupils occupied by a white light. Then the eyes emitting lascivious light burst open. A thin line of sword chi passed through her head. The female Thunder listener sensed the fear. She was just about to instinctively attack, when her vision suddenly changed. With one eye, she saw her own headless body. Then she realized her head had been cut off, held in the hand of this handsome man. What exactly happened? She didn't know, because she was about to die. Nearby, the male Thunder listener watched as the handsome man, who suddenly stood beside him and suddenly chopped off his wife's head, had his hair standing on end. The next moment his hair collapsed. Due to the gentle knife's body being extremely ungentle slapping down, it flattened his head to half its size, squeezing both eyes onto his nose. Yet even so, he was not dead yet, his hands flailing about to hit Duan-yun, as if trying to flee. Just as Duan-yun expected, these Thunder Crazies had extremely strong resistance to penetrative and blunt trauma. They could still counterattack. With a pft, the body of Thunder Crazy floated up a bit, struggled a moment, and then stopped moving. A deathly breaking body sword energy as thick as a rod passed through his belly, pinning him in the air. Murder, murder. Mr. Lei. Mr. Lei is dead. At this moment, the people around were scared and scattered away. One of them, with two iron flutes stuck in his head, was instantly turned into a sieve by Duan-yun's jade sword finger, falling to the ground. Duan-yun walked to a nearby stall, flicked his hand, and pulled out the bamboo pole hanging the shop's sign. In the next moment, two Thunder Crazies were strung onto the long bamboo pole by him. Duan-yun moved forward, stabbing the bamboo pole again, skewering the fallen Thunder Crazy onto it. Afterward, he carried the King Dumpling long bamboo pole, with 3 corpses hanging from it, striding into the city center. Inside a house, an ugly female shopkeeper was pinning a handsome boy's head between her legs, constantly rubbing and squeezing, eager to crush the boy's head. She could be a shopkeeper, enjoy such pleasures not because she was capable, but because she was ugly. Or rather, in Little Lei City, being ugly was the greatest skill. While the ugly female shopkeeper was in a state of ecstatic reverie, she heard only a snap. This sound seemed to penetrate her head, and then her whole body was lifted up. Only then did the shopkeeper realize that her face had been pierced by a bamboo pole, and her whole body had been hung up. Suddenly, urine flowed everywhere. She wanted to scream, but the bamboo pole had just passed through her mouth. She was like a fish skewered on a bamboo stick, unable to make much noise, only breathing heavily. This was an extremely horrifying scene. At this time, the master of the bamboo pole, young hero Duan, swung the pole behind him at an angle to avoid the urine splashing onto his back. Snow had started to fall. Duan Yun threw a piece of silver to the nearby tailor shop owner who was frightened stiff and couldn't flee, casually picked up a felt hat, and put it on his head. In the snow, there was a snow temple ahead in Little Lay City. He had kindly asked the enthusiastic crowd. The sect leader of the Thunder God and Mother sect and the elites were there. Thus, adorned with the felt hat, carrying the long bamboo pole strung with a string of ugly, wicked people, he headed straight for the snow temple. His hands were a little shaky, not sure whether from excitement or nervousness. At this moment, he even remembered the first time he had annihilated everyone from Xuanxiong Gang. Indeed, no matter how many times one acts for heaven and annihilates a whole sect, the feeling is the same. Nervousness, fear, excitement, and the naivety unique to young heroes. Ahead, the gate of the snow temple was already in sight, heaven or hell. Young hero Duan didn't think too much, pushed open the temple door with one hand, tilted the bamboo pole, and walked in very politely. Chapter 274. Furious Surge. Good versus evil, beauty and ugliness, the ultimate showdown. Duan Yun stepped into the snow temple, immediately facing a very long corridor. The walls on both sides of the corridor were a bright yellow color, well maintained. At this moment, for madmen of the Thunder City having heard the news, hurried over. Upon seeing Duan Yun and the corpses on his bamboo pole, the four Thunder Maniacs' expressions drastically changed, their iron flutes trembling atop their heads emitting a buzzing sound. For electric unification, a fierce look filled their eyes in an instant. Almost simultaneously, a sizzling sound began. From those iron flutes, the light of thunder and lightning emerged. A trace of excitement appeared in Duan Yun's eyes. Unexpectedly, these lunatics had mastered the thunder and lightning secret. The next moment, the thunder and lightning above their heads connected, forming a mysterious array, rushing toward Duan Yun. Electric light roared, transforming into a thunder net, flying toward Duan Yun like a net used for fishing. As the fish to be caught, Duan Yun stood there, unmoving. With a loud crack, the thunder net ensnared Duan Yun, his figure flickering uncertainly within it. The four Thunder Maniacs' iron flutes atop their heads trembled even more fiercely, determined to topple Duan Yun with electric shocks. But the next moment, they heard a cold voice rise. "Is this all the strength you've got? Ah, what a disappointment." Duan Yun raised his hand and grabbed the flowing thunder net. The next moment, a more robust electric light surged from his palm. In the next instant, the four Thunder Maniacs' bodies shook as an even more terrifying electric light enveloped them. Then, one of the younger Thunder Maniacs with a numb mouth said, "Big bro, his electricity is thicker than ours. What should we do?" "Old bro, I have no clue. He's a sinner. Kill him." Hardly had the man finished speaking, the thunder net around Duan Yun had turned into a thunder whip. With a single shake of his hand, the thunder whip turned into 5 consecutive whip shadows, like startling thunder. In the blink of an eye, 3 Thunder Maniacs were whipped to the ground, charred black, dead on the spot, with only the youngest Thunder Maniac left kneeling and begging for mercy. "Spare me. Hero, please spare my life. I am still young." Duan Yun saw his cowardice. Not even a thorough villain, hesitated for a moment, then continued to walk forward. Just as the young Thunder Maniac breathed a sigh of relief, he suddenly heard a boom, a fist power hitting his back, causing his body to smash to the ground. The punch seemed mighty, but the young thunder maniac found that he was not mortally wounded. Touching his chest, realizing he was only lightly injured, he was yet to feel joy when a surge of intense emotion suddenly flooded his brain. This feeling was so sudden and fierce, it almost overflowed. I want to become a hero. The thunder maniac's eyes turned blood red as he suddenly exclaimed. Why do you want to become a hero? Asked Duan Yun. Being a hero is great. Heroes are awesome. I need to kill. If I don't kill, I'm going to die. The thunder maniac shouted with a heart-rending voice. Whom do you want to kill? Kill Li Dashin. Why kill him? That sly woman, just because she looks good, got in with the third elder, became the exclusive of the third elder. No. I want to be a hero. I'm going to spank him hard. I want to kill. Duan Yun looked at the thunder maniac in front of him and shook his head, frustratedly saying, Such low awareness? And you want to be a hero? And you're still a testosterone. A jade sword finger shot out, piercing through the thunder maniac's chest, struggling as he fell to the ground. Before dying, he was still shouting, I want to be a hero. I want to spank. With a snap, before he could finish, he and the other three were hanging from the stick. This bamboo pole was at least 2 zhang long, now densely skewered with people, looking like a supersized candied haw stick. The temple beneath this mountain was deep. Duan Yun carried the candied haw, making his way upwards. At this time, he encountered a thunder maniac and dealt a jade sword finger. For those with strong vitality, he delivered 2, and for masters, he turned them into sieves. He truly killed one upon seeing one, and a pair upon seeing 2. Previously in Lishui City, he killed people of Xuanxiong Gang like this, and now he was slaughtering the thunder maniacs in the same manner. Thunder maniacs were much stronger than the bear brats of Xuanxiong Gang, but now they were merely an extra finger's work to him. Nothing but chickens and dogs. The pure white snow mixed with the vivid blood, creating an extremely beautiful scene within this ancient temple on the snow mountain. At this point, the temple buildings were near the cliff. The corpses on his bamboo pole had been crushed out of shape, and many had been shed along the way, no longer able to string any more people. Inside Little Lei City, some bloodthirsty onlookers followed behind. As they walked, they saw snow all the way, as well as bodies discarded along the way. This foreigner has gone on a killing spree. It doesn't matter whether it's the ugly noble with high status in the city, or the highly respected and formidable Mr. Lei, all dead. They were all respectable people, living every day by tormenting and humiliating beautiful men and women, searching for fun in their monotonous and dull lives. Some just casually listened to thunder rapists, killing these beautiful beasts. And now they've all been killed by this demon who emerged from who knows where. Bloodthirsty storyteller Shui was among them, his face extremely pale. As a storyteller, his vision was sharper, noticing that many of these scattered corpses were quite ugly. Could old demon Duan be so cruel and ruthless, killing anyone who was ugly? What a deep prejudice. Then, with a thud, Duan Yun planted the bamboo pole filled with ugly people into the ground, like a battle flag, because he saw 2 thunder maniacs with long spikes coming over. Chapter 275. These 2 individuals, one drenched in yellow paint and the other in green paint, thus appeared like a banana and a cucumber respectively. However, Duan Yun knew that these should be the most formidable opponents he had encountered since entering Little Lei City. This cucumber and banana, one tall and thin and the other short and chubby. Despite being splashed with paint, one could still see the tadpole script tattooed on their skin, also known as Thunder language by the disciples of the Thunder God and Mother sect. Upon seeing this Thunder language, Duan Yun had already decided to later flay their skin off for thorough research. After all, his beaming divine skill was comprehended in such a manner. Both their temples were swollen, their breaths starting to surge violently, and the enticing thunder language on their bodies turned bright and dim intermittently with the changes in their flesh and blood. But just at that moment, a voice drifted over from the halls behind them. Guangming Guangji, you are no match for him. Let him in. Yes, sect leader. The 2 looked at Duan Yun with cold eyes, very reluctantly making way. As Duan Yun walked in, he said, "Don't go away later." This statement had somewhat of a "don't leave after school" vibe. Indeed, he hadn't skinned them yet. How could he let these two evil demons leave so easily? Inside should be the sect leader. Deal with the big one first, then handle the small ones. In any case, not a single one should be missed. The palace ahead was not particularly magnificent, hardly any different from an ordinary house. But upon entering, Duan Yun saw a wide-bodied and fat, colorful sculpture stationed there. It was a human-shaped object, with a face that looked like a kindly old lady, but with a very long red nose, nearly reaching the ankle. The combination of a kind face and a red nose appeared both solemn and sinister, resembling both a charitable bodhisattva and a malevolent death god. Was this a sculpture of Thunder God and Mother? As Duan Yun continued walking inside, he saw a ponytailed woman dressed in a green skirt. She was facing a life-sized red-nosed statue. This statue should also represent Thunder God and Mother, but the face was wrapped in red cloth. She had her back to Duan Yun and didn't turn around, so he could only see her back. Honestly, the fact that the sect leader of the Thunder God and Mother sect was a ponytailed woman was quite unexpected to him. Duan Yun's expression became more solemn. This woman stood there, her iron flute atop her head very long, similar to two lightning rods, and her entire being in a rather void state. By void, he meant emptiness. Thus Duan Yun felt as if facing a deep abyss, finding it hard to fathom her depth. I have spent half my life listening to thunder. Thunder God and Mother once taught me that this world is too narrow-minded, needing a broader tolerance. The ponytailed woman, her back still towards him, spoke gently. Her voice was light, giving an illusion as if it floated down from the clouds, seeming like a decree from the divine, both solemn and mysterious. Duan Yun listened and found some sense in these words. Thunder God and Mother once said that from birth, a person should decide their own gender, whether if born male, she believes she's a woman, then she is a woman, or if born female, he believes he's a man, then he is a man. The world should not discriminate in any way. Discrimination is a sin. You come armed with swords, your body full of dense sword intent. You must be the old demon Duan. You killed my sect's elders and disciples. I have not pursued the matter, because your transformation has merits, promoting tolerance in the world. I have long studied that there are many genders in this world. Duan Yun raised an eyebrow. In Lizhou, there are large bathhouses, where men and women are clearly separated. In your eyes, if a woman who identifies as a man goes to the bathhouse, should she enter the male or female bath? Of course, the female bath, she identifies as a woman, then she is a woman even if she has a male organ. What if the women in the female bath do not agree? Duan Yun asked. Then they are guilty. The sin of intolerance. Thunder God and Mother also said that this world should not differentiate between beauty and ugliness. The ugly should not be looked down upon. The beautiful should not have special privileges. Duan Yun's forehead veins popped as he said, but here in Little Lei City, it is clearly the beautiful who are humiliated, the ugly who bully around. That's because beautiful people are inherently sinful. Thunder God and Mother said, throughout history, beautiful people have enjoyed too many conveniences and privileges. If this world had no beautiful people, then ordinary and ugly people could achieve great happiness. They are here to atone for their sins. With that, the ponytailed woman raised her hands and turned around. At that moment, Duan Yun nearly choked. The woman's skin was patchy black and white, her nose flat, her lips thick as intestine and averted, revealing yellowish teeth, and her eyes, when looking over, conveyed a sleazy and lecherous manner. Duan Yun never imagined that such a prettily dressed ponytailed woman could look like a female gorilla. No, comparing her to a gorilla was an insult to gorillas. Duan Yun couldn't help but curse. Are you sure these words were said by Thunder God and Mother? Not just you enacting personal revenge? Insolence. I only wish for this world to be filled with tolerance, where people are no longer anxious about gender and appearances. So your approach is to treat beautiful people like pigs and dogs, and only those ugly as dead pigs like yourself are fit to be human? Have you ever shown tolerance towards beautiful people? Duan Yun questioned. I've said before, throughout history, they have enjoyed too many conveniences. They cause ordinary people who deserve happiness to lose true love. They cause ordinary people who should have been together for life to feel deeply inferior. They are born sinful. They should atone. Bullshit. What ordinary people, mortals? Aren't they just like you? Uglier than pigs but with a heart higher than the sky. Chapter 276. You can't obtain true love. So you think it's the beautiful people who have stolen your happiness? You want to make those good-looking people worse off than pigs or dogs simply because you don't have to worry about your appearance. The ancients said, a twisted gourd always blames the pot, which describes exactly this kind of ugly sow. As these words came out, the woman's expression changed, and the deep black wrinkles on her face creased together. What, are you upset because I'm good-looking? Forget about what you want to do to the world, even your delusional love within this little lay city. I will crush it into nothingness. I am going to kill all those ugly dogs you support. What can you do about it? Duan Yun taunted. I can kill you. Slay all the sinners in the world and create a world without beauty or ugliness. The woman's eyes narrowed furiously as she spoke. Then come and kill me. Duan Yun stood there and said, Come on. The ugly woman's sect master replied with a piercing gaze. In an instant, the entire hall was filled with a suffocating atmosphere, and the air seemed to have frozen. The ugly woman's sect master extended her right hand, a gesture challenging Duan Yun to a duel, and her whole being became even more ethereal. For a moment, Duan Yun found her depth even more unfathomable, but he still strode forward. If he didn't beat this ugly woman to death today, he wouldn't be a young hero. If the air was solid mudstone, then Duan Yun at this moment was like a boat forging upstream against the current. Within 2 steps, Duan Yun had already taken his position, extending his own right hand. The air around them became even more solid, and a nearby table seemed overwhelmed, creaking and groaning. 3 feet, 2 feet, 1 foot, 7 inches, 4 inches, 2 inches. Their hands drew closer and closer, and suddenly, Duan Yun's expression shifted, transforming into a sword finger, flashing with sword light. With a thud, like the sound of a morning bell or evening drum, Duan Yun's figure swept backward, only stopping when he crashed into the wall with a bang. Just a moment ago, one of the iron flutes on the ugly woman's head disappeared, then shot out from her palm like lightning. This thin, sharp iron flute, could it really travel through her body? As soon as Duan Yun steadied himself, the ugly woman's figure shimmered with a streak of electric light and attacked again like an arrow. With a clang, Duan Yun's saber had been drawn, colliding with the iron flute in her palm. The next instant, the iron flute disappeared unexpectedly, as Duan Yun's saber slid to the side on its own momentum, while the ugly woman had already lifted her foot. With a whoosh, the iron flute shot out from one of her toes, aiming to stab fiercely. Another clang, and sparks exploded. Duan Yun's saber did not move, but it had blocked the attack, thanks to his drawn sword. The next moment, Duan Yun's head tilted just as a hole was pierced where he had just been standing. At that time, another iron flute on the ugly woman's head had also disappeared. Clang, clang, clang. Shurs, shurs, shurs. For a moment, a dense and grating sound echoed through the room. The sound of the iron flute intensely colliding and scraping against the saber and sword. Duan Yun's hands wielded his saber and sword fiercely like a storm, while the ugly woman seemed to be able to produce iron flutes from all over her body, with movements as fast as thunder and unpredictably cunning. In the blink of an eye, they had exchanged over 100 moves. After becoming a dual master of sword and saber, Duan Yun often practiced fighting with both hands, competing against his left-hand saber with his right-hand sword, elevating his speed to new heights. It could be said that there were few swordsmen in the world who were faster than him, few who were quicker with a saber, and never had he met someone who could match his simultaneous sword and saber fighting. Even the Huangshan heroine, known for her sword skills, had never pushed him beyond half of his speed. But today he had met his match. The mad woman's iron flutes were fast and treacherous, and worse, The force behind them was fiercely extreme. Even taking his sword and saber speed to the max, Duan Yun still found himself grasping at straws. With a boom, he was forced out through the wall. The next instant, sword chi erupted behind Duan Yun as black silk Little Yu appeared. Embrace Sparrow Tail. As he opened fire on both sides, Duan Yun also clenched his sword-wielding hand into a sword finger. In the next instant, as the golden sword stabbed forward, dozens of Little Yu jade hands shot forward with jade sword finger sword energy. A string of dense sparks burst in the air like lava exploding upon striking rock. A shot from jade sword finger sword energy sheared off a strand of the ugly woman's sect master's hair, while Duan Yun's shoulder garment was torn. Even with Little Yu firing jade sword finger, Duan Yun couldn't gain the slightest advantage, and was even faintly falling into a disadvantage. He considered his close quarters combat formidable, especially the blade storm formed by his sword and saber, which always swept through anyone in its path. But this mad woman could make 2 iron flutes travel at high speed within her body, continuously shooting out from various parts of her body with inconceivably quick and unpredictable trajectories. Yes, even if Duan Yun wanted to launch a blade storm or even more powerful moves, he couldn't manage it, because the opponent didn't give him time to prepare or even catch his breath. It was as if the woman's body itself was a deadly weapon. Then, the ugly woman's sect master spoke. "How do you like my chaining you for 3,000 years? She didn't open her mouth, but a voice emerged, because she could speak from her belly, the so-called ventriloquism. Her chaining you for 3,000 years was a close-quarters fight like the one before them, which, according to the Thunder God and Mother Sect leader, could even entangle a deity to death. In the martial world, swordsmen are not to be trifled with. Even more so are the renowned swordsmen, and those you should never provoke are the famous Taoists who wield swords. 13 years ago, a red shoes Taoist had appeared in the martial world, known for his brightly colored red shoes and swift sword. This red shoes Taoist made his reputation by killing the South Sea's first swift sword, and then consecutively defeated 10 renowned swordsmen, unmatched in fame. But 3 years later, he disappeared. Chapter 277. Following his red shoes. Regarding the whereabouts of the red shoes Taoist, the martial world was full of varying accounts. Some said a severe illness took his life, some said he suddenly went mad due to demonic influence, and others said he fell in love, reverted to secular life, and had children. After all, the red shoes Taoist always wore a conical hat, and few had ever seen his true face. Only a handful of people knew that the red shoes Taoist had encountered Yen Ruffing. That is, the sect leader of the Thunder God and Mother Sect standing before us now. Back then, Yen Ruffing was not yet the sect leader, but had already mastered the chaining you for 3,000 years technique. Even the swift as a shadow red shoes Taoist was caught by him. His hands that wielded the sword pierced through by the iron flute numerous times, turning him into a cripple. This was the only person under Yen Ruffing's command who had been caught yet managed to escape death. Afterwards, her chaining you for 3,000 years technique advanced further, becoming even more lethal. In fact, Duan Yun holding out till now had somewhat exceeded Yen Ruffing's expectations, because even the red shoes Taoist of the past had been defeated by her after so many moves. And the current old demon Duan, indeed deserving of his recent prominent reputation, was able to withstand her advanced chaining you for 3,000 years for such a long time. His subordinate, under the sect leader, was greatly shocked as she could not take down this enemy immediately, because he had never seen anyone last so long under the sect leader's attacks. "Sect leader, let me help you." As the sect leader's foremost sycophant, Guardian Huang leaped forward, intending to join the sect leader in attacking old demon Duan. But within a single breath, his body was riddled with 6 blood holes, 3 saber marks, and 2 sword injuries, immediately subdued. Indeed, if Duan Yun and Yen Ruffing had stayed in place for one more breath, the wounds on his body would likely have doubled or even resulted in a fatal injury. This duel was definitely not something they could interfere with. At that moment, a loud clang was heard as the iron flute struck the lower part of the sword, causing Duan Yun's sword to nearly slip from his grip. Yen Ruffing, uglier than a gorilla, revealed a crooked smile on her face. The winner was determined. Opening her mouth, a sharp iron flute protruded, aiming unstoppably at Duan Yun's right hand, reaching for the sword. At that moment, Duan Yun's hand suddenly released the sword, and dark death energy surged from his arm. Death energy breaking body sword energy. A blast of death energy breaking body sword energy shot out unexpectedly, striking the iron flute and skewing it. The energy continued unbroken, transforming into a sword pillar, directly striking Yen Rufing's chest. Yen Rufing retracted the iron flute in her palm, raised her right arm, and in a flash, moved it from under her armpit, breaking through the sword pillar. As the sword pillar dispersed, the arm from which Duan Yun had released the breaking body sword energy transformed into a trembling fist. Fist intent. Extreme hatred. The 15-road chi fist formed a barrage, striking Yen Rufing's wrist with a cracking sound. Almost simultaneously, Yen Rufing's other leg, unbeknownst when, had raised suddenly, releasing a segment of iron flute from under her foot, piercing Duan Yun's left forearm with a snap. Both sides were injured by the other in a flash and separated. Without even a breath in between, they were ready to fight again, but almost at the same time, both were impacted, speaking simultaneously. I want to be a hero. I want to become ugly. Handsomeness is a sin. This fist is poisonous. This flute is poisonous. Both realized at the same time, with Duan Yun's sword energy carrying blood splashing forth, dispersing the blood laced with peculiar true chi, while Yen Rufing slapped her own stomach, causing a drumming sound, then spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. Both finished detoxifying almost simultaneously, but because of this, they had stepped 5 or 6 steps apart, giving Duan Yun a chance to initiate another technique. Love. Unlimited. Dharma image Xiaoyu dipped downward, creating a violent storm of swords and sabers in an instant, as Duan Yun, now known as the dual masters of sword and saber, floated in the air with Xiaoyu. Seeing this, Yen Rufing's expression changed, and she shouted, "Yen Rufing!" She unexpectedly called her own name, causing her body to emit fogs of blood from every part that could sprout an iron flute, like a steam engine. Simultaneously, a Dharma image with thunderous ice peaks jutted from the ground. With a booming sound, Duan Yun's love unlimited storm smashed down. But Yen Rufing, her skin icy and gleaming with red-purple electricity, firmly resisted the attack. From afar, it looked like a swirling storm smashed on an electrified ice peak. With a booming sound, the ground sank down a bit, and the thunder god and mother sect deity statue on the altar plummeted. Nearby snowflakes instantly turned to tatters, turning into snow mist. The gate and walls of the temple had been destroyed, but Yen Rufing withstood it fiercely. With a booming explosion, ice crystals on Yen Rufing's body shattered, blood splattered, and the spinning Duan Yu knocked over the thunder god and mother statue atop the altar, sliding a full 15 meters before stabilizing and gasping deeply. Mother gorilla-like, Yen Rufing's hair had been completely twisted off, and a bloody, flowing wound ran from her shoulders down to her belly. Yet she endured. A huge crack formed on her Dharma image's icy peak, but it didn't shatter entirely. Continue. Love unlimited. Suddenly, a frenzied voice rang out, making Yen Rufing's heart tremble. She had trained her body into a weapon, into an icy peak, and believed herself to be unbreakable. Yet this naturally handsome and sinful old demon Duan forcefully smashed a crack into her. Unexpectedly, old demon Duan wasn't even panting hard, and was about to launch another attack of this magnitude. Damn, sinfully and madly insane. As a grandmaster, she knew well that old demon Duan couldn't launch many more such devastating blows. How could she possibly lose? She looked towards the deeper cloth-covered statue in the temple, filled with determination and confidence. Yen Rufing, attack if you dare. This seat isn't afraid of you. Her Dharma image shook as her body started to form ice crystals again. But just in that instant, a breaking body sword energy suddenly shot out, striking the cloth-covered statue. With a booming sound, as the statue shattered, Yen Rufing felt as if she had been hit too, momentarily stunned, nearly forgetting to crystallize. In fights between masters, a mere instant can determine victory or defeat. That brief lapse in focus, it was already too late for her. A terrifying storm of swords and sabers hammered down where she hadn't managed to crystallize in time. With a booming sound, the ground leaped up, and the entire temple along with the previously cloth-covered statue's head shattered and leapt. By now, the red cloth had been sliced by sword chi, revealing what was underneath. It was a face with a long, red nose. Unlike the outer thunder god and mother statue, this face more resembled a female gorilla. Or rather, it more resembled a replica of Yen Rufing's own face. A pool of blood mist soared high before slowly falling, leaving only small remnants of Yen Rufing's unbreakable body. Those remnants were half of her head and a shoulder. Her hideous half-face still retained expressions of fear, reluctance, and anger. She probably never expected to die in such a way. Duan Yun stood amidst the ruins, looking at the half-gorilla-like head and the similar half of the statue's head, realizing his guess was right. This ugly, crazy woman, raving mad, wanted to turn all beauty in the world into nothing, even annihilate it all, ultimately revealing her pathological narcissism. Ugly yet extremely narcissistic, mixed yet with irreversible inferiority. Even though she had perfected an ultimate cultivation technique and become a grandmaster, the world still regarded her as ugly. Thus, she blamed the world, wanting to slaughter beauty, to reverse beauty and ugliness, to make her narcissistic self become absolutely perfect. She had been admiring the thunder god and mother statue, modeled after her own face. Duan Yun even suspected she had self-directed it. Thus, when the statue shattered, this extremely distorted narcissist felt as if she herself had been shattered. And it was this moment of daze that led to her defeat. The victorious young hero Duan stood there, proving two things. That ugly crazy woman is just a maladjusted freak, and evil will never triumph over good. At this time, he was gasping for breath, looking around for the figures of banana and cucumber. The scriptures of this young hero are still on your skins, yet to be peeled off. And at this moment, Yu Shuang, watching the breathless and weak young hero Duan, had eyes that blazed with passion. While Xian Di trembled to the extreme, it was time. Chapter 278. Continuing the decisive battle. 10,000 swords against 10,000 swords. Snow chaotically fluttered around, stirred up by love unlimited, and suspended in the air without falling. The air still carried the terrifying pressure generated by their confrontation. Duan Yun adjusted his breathing, feeling as though his throat was ignited. Dealing with the ugly, crazy old woman had indeed exhausted much of his strength. Yet, he marveled at his own extraordinary wisdom. Had it not been for his sudden insight into the peculiarity of the divine statue and shattering it opportunistically, he might not have been able to kill the mad woman from the Thunder God and Mother sect so easily, and might have even had to resort to using the sword field. Duan Yun had to admit, since entering the martial world, this was the person he had met who had cultivated their body to the utmost limit. The mad woman could not only make the iron flute shuttle through her body and shoot out but had even turned herself into a weapon. Duan Yun entered from the east gate, slicing through enemies like vegetables until he reached here and eliminated the sect leader of the Thunder God and Mother sect. By this time, he was somewhat tired, drenched in sweat and gasping for air. But as a young hero, he could not rest yet. He still needed to find those two guys and skin them. Green cucumber Guangxi ran fast, but yellow banana Guangming was not necessarily as quick. In just an instant, nearly 10 wounds appeared on his body. Before the sect leader was killed by the dual masters of sword and saber, he thought of someone. Old Demon Duan. At that moment, Guangming no longer hesitated and fled frantically. Even though he had targeted the Jigong and Tsuchi acupuncture points, blood still dripped down. The blood fell onto the snow, leaving traces which were not very noticeable in the snowy weather. Probably wouldn't be long before the traces disappeared. Taking advantage of his familiarity with Little Lei City and his flashing wit, Guangming thought that the most dangerous place might be the safest. He smartly circled around and returned to the vicinity where the sect leader had been killed, hiding by a yellow wall near a cliff. He lay there motionless as a stone, his ear to the ground. From this spot, Guangming could hear the faint footsteps gradually fading away. It must be old Demon Duan who had left. Sect leader, you died a terrible death. It was only then that Guangming dared to cry out mournfully in his heart. But in the next instant, a voice unexpectedly rang out. So you're hiding here. Guangming numbly lifted his head, only to see Duan Yun's pure, clear eyes. He was sitting atop the wall, looking down at himself lying in the snow. A wretched scream erupted. Duan Yun sat on Guangming, complaining, "Stop yelling. A man should bear it. I'm just skinning you. It won't hurt much." As if it wouldn't hurt, Guangming screamed miserably, tears streaming across his face. He had just still had strength, and he wasn't weak either. But in the instant he saw old Demon Duan, he went limp, losing all courage to resist. The mental shock from seeing the sect leader killed was too great, leaving him utterly unresistant. At this moment, Duan Yun's voice rang out again, causing him to tense up. "Don't move, lest I accidentally cut the wrong place. See, your waist is already cut," Duan Yun complained. Hearing this, Guangming pissed himself. "No, please no." While Guangming was being cut by Duan Yun, Yu Shuangshuang had already been flying in the air, looking down at Duan Yun. At that moment, seeing Duan Yun's back, she couldn't hold back anymore. Her body plummeted down gracefully and silently, her posture strikingly suggestive of a mounted combat. From this view, her rounded thighs seemed like terrifying clamps, ready to straddle and clamp Duan Yun directly. 3 feet, 2 feet, 1 foot, just as Yu Shuangshuang, in her mounted pose, was only inches away from Duan Yun. Duan Yun's whole body tensed in instinctive recognition of the impending danger. Boom! Breaking body sword energy burst forth like free, clashing with Yu Shuangshuang. With a swoosh, Duan Yun's body tilted sideways, stepping on Guangming as if surfing forward, nearly plunging off the cliff. And after being hit by the breaking body sword energy, Yu Shuangshuang, unaffected, continued her fervent lunge towards him. She was intent on riding him. Duan Yun, without looking back, executed a returning horse slash. The surging sword qi swept out in a crescent shape. But Yu Shuangshuang reached out her hands, grabbing and tearing the sword qi apart like paper, continuing her grasp towards Duan Yun. With a clang, the gentle knife collided with Yu Shuangshuang's sharp claws. The sound was piercing. Both retracted from the clash. Yu Shuangshuang landed back on the wall, and Duan Yun's feet disturbed the accumulated snow, a scream echoing. The Guangming beneath his feet had fallen off the cliff, leaving only a piece of skin in Duan Yun's hand. Damn, didn't finish skinning. I'll have to fetch it later and continue. Duan Yun swiftly turned towards Yu Shuangshuang and exclaimed, "Red House Madwoman." He had not expected that in roaming around, he would encounter the Red House Madwoman in the Madman of Thunder's territory. Dealing with the Red House Madwoman, Duan Yun already had his method. When he first entered the martial world, he was almost deceived by a red-building woman, and secretly vowed that if he ever encountered another, he would ensure they went back fully satisfied. Yet he had not disappointed them. Numerous red-building women had died by his hand in the martial world. In fact, many even called him the fairy assassin. At this moment, this seemingly young red-building woman's eyes burned passionately as she gazed at him and said deeply, "Duan Yun, do you know how hard I've searched for you? Do you still remember the time you left me in tears, bleeding, and wetting myself?" Her voice was excited and sincere, sounding as if she had suffered for years and finally found her beloved husband. Not too far away, the bloodthirsty audience was greatly shocked by this scene. The bloodthirsty storyteller even wrote, "Old Demon Duan actually has a doomed love with a red-building fairy. Could this be the reason he ruthlessly kills? Or could it be that from love comes hate? Duan Yun killed the red-building woman's sisters and even her whole family, yet she fell in love with him." Looking at the red-building woman who was gazing deeply at him, Duan Yun couldn't help but say, "Who the hell are you?" This fired up the crowd even more. Was this old demon utterly ruthless, or was there a hidden story behind it? As Duan Yun cursed, Yu Shuangshuang became even more excited. Indeed, he was the man she intended to take advantage of. Even his cursing was attractive. Then, in the next moment, the lotus pattern between the woman's eyebrows swirled and shot toward him again. Without any hesitation, Duan Yun drew his sword. After the great battle where he killed the master of the Thunder God and Mother Sect, he thought he would be dealing with minor scuffles, mostly looting bodies and relaxing, but unexpectedly, he had to draw both sword and saber so soon. Boom! The snow under Duan Yun's feet, along with the dirt, kept collapsing as his swords moved as fast as lightning. He had to admit that drawing both his sword and saber was the right choice, considering this red-building woman was no ordinary opponent. Her movements were ghostly, or rather, like a piece of clothing that moves unpredictably fast and slow, its trajectory hard to trace. Even with his dual swords and the reemergence of Dharma image Xiaoyu, he could only primarily defend. The key issue was that the red-building woman possessed terrifyingly deep martial prowess. Every strike, fast or slow, hit like thunder, causing his arms to go numb. Yes, her level of prowess was even better than that ugly sect leader he just faced. And this woman was still so young. This was the first peer Duan Yun had ever encountered whose true chi was more profound than his. Stronger than him. How the hell does that even make sense? Body-breaking sword pillar. The raging breaking body sword energy morphed into a sword pillar, swirling outward. The two clashed continuously, their movements like lightning. The bloodthirsty viewers could not keep up with their speed. Where they fought, the sturdy yellow walls instantly developed massive cracks and crumbled. Next, Yu Shuangshuang's brow furrowed, and her petal-like eyelids snapped shut, then opened fully. Xian Di Divine Needle. After absorbing the little building owner, she had learned this unique skill. Facing the incoming barrage of needle-like energy, Duan Yun dared not be careless and instantly unleashed wind-flowing force. This wind-flowing force indeed burst from all limbs, not only carrying a powerful void-breaking force colliding with the Xian Di Divine Needle, but Duan Yun also used the rebounding force to soar, moving through the air like lightning. The Xian Di Divine Needle and wind-flowing force collided, shattering most of the needles, turning into a divine mist of water. As Yu Shuangshuang watched these roaring forces, her eyes crazily met one of them. In an instant, she clenched her legs together, letting fluid escape. Yet, her face showed no pain. Instead, she crazily said, "Duan Yun, this was how you treated me back then. Do you know?" After the previous major battle, Duan Yun was already worn out, but he hadn't expected to encounter such a difficult person so soon. He couldn't help but mutter, "How should I remember all that crap? Where does this nymphomaniac come from?" Xian Di. Then, as Xian Di trembled, the surrounding air suddenly twisted. Snowflakes around them sped toward Yu Shuangshuang. Duan Yun, seeing this, knew the opponent was upping her game. Go big. Who is this young hero afraid of? Electromagnetic sword field. Activate. Squeak, squeak, squeak. The terrifying power of thunder and lightning roared out, forming an electromagnetic sword field. The snowflakes originally gathering toward Yu Shuangshuang were hit by the electromagnetic force, some halting, others spinning backwards. Duan Yun, when you were gone, I thought of you every day. Let me be happy. 10,000 silk rain sword. In just an instant, the petal of the Xian Di on Yu Shuangshuang's forehead closed, resembling a closing lotus bud, appearing from this angle more like a pink eye. The next moment, countless tiny flying swords shot out from this eye, pressing down on Duan Yun as they flew towards him. As she flew in, the air beneath her feet formed into lotus patterns, as if in her eyes were thousands of swords, stepping on a red lotus, like a nine heavens fairy. In the eyes of those bloodthirsty viewers, she was a fairy descending to dance among mortals. And in her heart was only one word: deceive! Rotate! Damn it! Rotate the electromagnetic sword field. Kill her! For a moment, the sound of wind and thunder intensified, and flowing electric light even traveled through Xiao Yu's pupils, giving her eyes looking at you shuang a thunderous wrath. At this moment, thousands of flying swords emitted by Xiandi collided with the thousands of electric swords surged from the electromagnetic sword field. Thus, 10,000 swords met 10,000 swords, deciding the outcome. Chapter 279. Young hero slay all impurities. Countless electric swords and Xiandi flying swords collided, all exceedingly fine, the thinnest like embroidery needles. Even the finest of swords, densely clustered together, are enough to make one's head spin. For a time, the sky above the heads of Duan Yun and Yu Shuang was completely obscured. Boom! The violent collision noises erupted fiercely, booming like muffled thunder. In an instant, electric swords and flying swords mutually shattered and splattered. A Xiandi flying sword shot out, striking right through the brow of a male onlooker. That man's forehead bore a bloody hole, his eyes bulging out as he uttered, "Truly, worth, eggs." His speech was already unclear before death, a result of the Xiandi flying sword having paralyzed his tongue. Just as the man died, another sequence of Xiandi flying swords and electric swords struck. The body hit by the electric sword trembled, hair standing on end, skin charred, dead in an instant, while those hit by Xiandi flying swords were clutching their bodies, paralyzed, until they could no longer breathe and died. Yet even in death, they bore expressions as if it were worth it. It has to be said, the battle between Duan Yun and Yu Shuang was truly magnificent. Not just magnificent, but also terrifyingly powerful. 10,000 swords crisscrossed, striking against one another, surging like waves. Between them, the air had long since warped and deformed, everything turning into fragments. They were already close to the cliff, and now the ground rapidly collapsed into gaping black holes, both sliding downwards. Even while falling down the cliff, both continued to control their respective flying swords in battle. A few bloodthirsty spectators ran to the edge of the cliff to watch. One, through carelessness, tumbled down, glaring at the two combatants as he fell. Pity they didn't finish watching before dying. At that moment, a loud shout from Yu Shuang was heard, and even more Xiandi flying swords burgeoned from Xiandi, surging over like a river. Duan Yun raised his hand, and the surrounding electric swords instantly spun around him, like schools of fish. Afterward, he charged forward. Boom! The snow in the area collapsed and flowed, forming cascading snow waterfalls. Below, the snow laid mirror-smooth ice surfaces. Ugh! Duan Yun was hit in the right arm by a cluster of Xiandi flying swords, rapidly paralyzing half of his body. Only his left hand's blade stabbed into the ice to stabilize his figure. At this time, Yu Shuang was also hit by several electric swords. Electricity blossomed over her body, igniting flames, and her clothes caught fire. Electric swords also paralyzed her body, but unlike Duan Yun, she was still floating above, wanting to fly down upon Duan Yun, and thus, helplessly, her body began falling towards the abyss. If her body hadn't been electrified, she could have attempted to maneuver using Red House's unique movement technique, but now she couldn't. She looked at Duan Yun, reaching out, trying to grab him, only to fall off the cliff in the next instant. Duan Yun stood there, gasping for breath to force out the poison, cursing, "In a moment, I'll go down and collect that mad woman's corpse." After 2 consecutive big fights, his true chi was truly running out. Having regained some strength, Duan Yun returned to the top of the cliff, extended a finger, and performed a sword finger. With a whoosh, blood mixed with Xiandi's water sprayed out, and only then did he slowly catch his breath. Even after forcing the poison out with his blood, Duan Yun still felt half of his body had not recovered. "That mad woman's water spray seems quite suitable as an anesthetic," Duan Yun remarked. At this time, he was still gasping, looking very weak. But in the eyes of the onlookers, it was as if he were a god or demon. The next moment, Duan Yun stood up, and the crowd retreated in fear. Duan Yun approached the edge of the cliff and glanced down. This cliff was bottomless, the walls on both sides as gleaming as mirrors. Then he drew out his sword, attaching himself to the ice as he slid downwards. Duan Yun was tired, but he couldn't stop. He had to check for the corpses of that thunder madman and the red house mad woman. The proverb "in life be seen, in death be found" held true. After all, many martial arts novels mention that some people have incredible encounters after falling from cliffs, and may come back for trouble. Young hero Duan must completely eradicate the problem to prevent such events. The ice was very smooth and cold, initially sloped, and in an instant, Duan Yun had released his blade. Because the cliff had become vertical here, even he had to rely on his sword to descend, lest he fall off the cliff. At this moment, he was already in the midst of clouds, but still the cliff had no visible bottom. Descending for over 100 feet, darkness surrounded him, yet he still hadn't reached the bottom. With a snap, Duan Yun kicked off an ice stalagmite that had protruded out. The stalagmite fell downward, bringing back no sound. This icy cliff's depth was simply immeasurable. Looking from here, below seemed to lead to abyss hell. A gust of wind blew, and Duan Yun was swaying left and right. Being on this bottomless cliff, Duan Yun once again felt as insignificant as dust. He descended a bit further and found it difficult to continue. The ice grew harder and smoother, even he needed to circulate true chi to stab his sword in. While sticking to the ice, Duan Yun could feel ice forming on his eyebrows and hair. This place was forbidden for humans, a death zone. This still bottomless cliff posed danger even for someone as skilled as him. At this time, Duan Yun suddenly smelled a hint of blood. He concentrated and looked closely, descending a bit further, and after a long while, he saw a leg on a protruding ice stalagmite. A bloody, severed leg stuck on the ice, seemingly belonging to the red house mad woman. Chapter 280. Young hero purge all filth. He kicked off another icicle, and after it fell, there was still no sound from below. Such a deep icy cliff, and with a broken leg, I refuse to believe you wouldn't die. Even the most cautious of people would give up at this point. Because being on this cliff, if one carelessly falls down and gets pierced by the protruding icicles, it's very likely to be life-threatening. This applies to an expert like Duan Yun as well. After all, his condition isn't great following a major battle, and if he were to get injured again, climbing up to such a height would not be easy. But young hero Duan is a man of strong action, or perhaps a bit obstinate. The thought of not having drawn true chi from the mad woman to replenish himself, and of not having infused her with heroic spirit, shouting, "I want to be a hero," made him feel incomplete. So he continued to slide down. The icy peak was like a mirror, silent as death. Here, Duan Yun couldn't even feel the passage of time. He did not know how long he had been sliding down, just that his clothes and pants had already been torn by inconspicuous icicles, and with his true chi not particularly abundant, he even felt cold, unable to stop trembling. Duan Yun looked up, only to see a dimness above. Looking down, it was even darker, as black as ink. Could it be that it was already dark? In this silent chasm, he could no longer distinguish between day and night. If not for the faint blue light from the ice, it could be said that he couldn't see his hand in front of his face. When the icicle was again kicked off and once more there was no sound of it landing, Duan Yun knew he could not go down any further. With the visibility here, even if he reached the bottom of the cliff, finding a body would be like searching for a needle in the ocean. The key was that from such a height, a person would likely only be left with a layer of skin after the fall. The cold wind howled. Duan Yun exhaled a breath of cold air and decided to turn back. He even had the illusion that if he didn't go back now, he might never return. In the darkness, as if there was some unknown terror lurking. In his prime, he always felt there was nowhere his 1-in-a-million cultivation talent could not reach, but not in this state. After overexerting himself, even the mightiest person feels as if their body has been hollowed out. Duan Yun was very confident, but not blindly so. It was an intelligent confidence. He began to climb upwards. After climbing for nearly half an hour, it was still dim above, and Duan Yun always had the illusion that he had fallen into an unknown darkness, or rather, that this was no longer the realm of the living, but another dimension that seemed to trap him here forever. Duan Yun knew this was an illusion created by being in a dark space for a long time. He had to admit that his decision to return was the right one because sliding down was possible, but climbing up required using a sword to carve into the ice for a path, which was much harder. In his prime state, he could slash his sword on the ice and fly up several meters, or even occasionally perform high-end maneuvers like spiraling into the sky with a left footstep on the right side. But now it was not allowed. Duan Yun didn't know how long he had climbed, only that he felt completely exhausted when he finally emerged from the clouds and saw the sky above. The sky was much darker, filled with storm clouds, but this dim light was so wonderfully good. Below, it truly was no place for humans to linger. Duan Yun exerted more strength and climbed upwards rapidly, and at this time, there were still several onlookers at the edge of the cliff. Old Demon Duan is gone too, right? I don't know, why did he go down? Could it be that Fairy Xian Di is dead, and he was suddenly trapped by love, choosing to die for love? Nonsense! What kind of merciless person is old Demon Duan, trapped by love? He's made 800 women trapped by love. He wouldn't confine himself even for a moment. I bet he wouldn't even spare a corpse. From such a height, would there be a corpse? Could old demon have also accidentally fallen to his death? I think it's possible. This is Ice Demon Snow Gorge, after all. Those who descend here are doomed to 10 deaths, no life. At that moment, they heard a crack, and a noise came from their right rear. A few onlookers turned to see old Demon Duan's handsome face emerging. Damn, it's both slippery and deep. It's exhausting, he cursed. No sooner had his voice faded when they heard old demon and ghost, followed by 7 or 8 people scrambling out with rolls and crawls. Duan Yun lay on the cliff's edge, gasping for air. To think someone as handsome as me could be mistaken for a ghost. Moreover, accusing young hero of being an old demon is a serious crime. If I weren't so tired right now, I would definitely have it out with you guys. He lay there, breathing deeply and shallowly. Even without moonlight, his true chi was rapidly recovering. Deep at the bottom of the gorge was a heap of pitch-black mud. Even if it's mud, falling from such a height is not much different than crashing onto iron blocks. Yu Shuangshuang's body was shattered, barely feeling any sensation or pain. If not for her having absorbed too many people, her true chi incredibly robust, and having been protected by the hard-fought Xian Di around her chest above during the fall, she would have likely ended up a bloody, burst skin. The bottom of the gorge was not in darkness, but flickered with the blue glow of ice crystals. Just like the fireflies of summer, but turned into icy blue. She knew she was going to die. The last time she fell from the cliff, she crashed down only about 100 meters by luck, and stumbled upon an enormous opportunity. But this time, luck was not on her side. It's a pity that she was about to die without completing what she most wanted to do. But she knew she had done her best. She had absorbed so many people, found such a good opportunity, thinking she had the advantage of time and place, but still she failed. The man Yu Shuangshuang had set her sights on was indeed someone incomparable. Indeed, she was unable to conquer him. At this moment, in this stench-ridden, mud-filled cliff bottom, suddenly there was a sound of footsteps, like someone wearing wooden clogs stepping on the mud. Yu Shuangshuang involuntarily felt a wave of fear. Besides herself, who was about to die, how could there be someone else at the bottom of this gorge? At this moment, her heart was filled only with fear, without the slightest hope for rescue or joy for a miracle. Because the footsteps themselves were a source of terror. A ghost. Just then, the footsteps stopped, and the eye sockets of Yu Shuangshuang, already burst from the fall, saw a face of utmost horror. It should have been a human face, yet it bore root-like things. In that instant, Yu Shuangshuang couldn't help but recall the rumors about Old Mother Mountain. There were rumors of humanoid snow ginseng in the mountain, but those who came to pick ginseng often disappeared without a trace. Not even their bones found. Could it be that their bones ended up here, transformed into such things? Yu Shuangshuang was always a strong and determined person. But now, her body shattered, her obsessions followed suit, and in this moment, she showed her fragile human side. She was scared and terrified, watching that dreadful face draw near. Her forehead Siendi twitched, secreting the last of the divine water. This final divine water could kill everything in the world, herself included. As long as she was dead, she wouldn't need to be afraid. And so she died. In death, a faint smile seemed to linger on her face, as if she saw someone